How is he aiming at his face?
He's sitting up.
And now all the guys are doing.
I'm still with you.
That still makes no sense to me.
I'm still with you.
Where
on
do
that.
you point
That's
it?
the good
I
point.
don't point it at my face.
Welcome to SinCast, presented by CinemaSins.
All right, everybody, welcome to the SinCast. This is Chris Atkinson from CinemaSins, joined as always by the voice of CinemaSins, Jeremy Scott.
Huzzah!
From Music Video Sins, Barrett Sher.
Kapow!
Ooh.
And everybody is here.
Yeah.
Including Jonathan Watkins,
Hello.
Aaron Dicer,
Idly ho, Centerinos.
and Danae Hughes.
Hi.
Hello.
End with a bang.
We are packed into a small room. 6 of us all in this small room doing some podcasting and everything. I can smell everybody.
Did you smell me yesterday?
Of course.
Oh, man. I forgot my deodorant legit.
You know, I didn't smell you.
Oh, okay.
So.
He was trying.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
terrible.
I was trying.
That was an awkward part of the staff meeting, but you know.
Right. I
thought it was
mean,
like-
I pretended to be looking for like a pencil or something.
Yeah.
That's what I do.
You're like,
I go
hey.
over and sniff people.
Yeah.
That's what that is. I've been trying to answer that question for years.
There's nothing weird about
Why
it.
does he keep not finding pencils?
I don't have any pencils, Chris. Leave me alone, man.
Yeah. He's like, no, this isn't my process. Don't worry about it. Today, we are going to be talking about how this channel, this YouTube CinemaSins channel, got off the ground and the history of it now that we're 7 years later in the process and everything. And, of course, dates slightly before that, leading up to this and everything. I will say that we can start by saying that Jeremy started on Real SEO, a website that wrote about online video. That was sort of the early, I guess, genesis of it and everything. That's where you specifically at first were learning about online video and like at the time that you were doing this. I wasn't watching YouTube. I didn't know anything about it, really. I didn't even, people would talk about viral videos. I didn't see them. I was still stuck in my world of movie theater projection and things of that nature. Was that around 2010, 2011 when
2011, yeah.
Yeah. That you started that. Now, as you got farther into that, I started getting interested, and you got me, a good word with the guy who ran Real SEO, and I started writing articles on the site. So we both were writing stuff, and my main thing was writing about. I think the main thing that I remember writing about was the YouTube Creator Playbook. That was the main thing. I used to that was the thing that they said, hey, let's try to take these chapter by chapter and just write articles about it. And we just get content out of that. And that's what I was doing for a while. So
Yeah, in fact, a lot of people ask us, how did you do what you did with CinemaSins? And it's always going to be a mix of good ideas, things we did, and total pure fucking universal luck. Because there's so much great content out there that is as good as what we do that just hit on the wrong day or never got BuzzFeed to write. I had a guy at Starbucks the other day figure out that I was the CinemaSins guy, and he was like, how'd you do that? How'd you get 9 million subscribers?
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, BuzzFeed wrote about our first video. The rest is history. Like, we cheated. But at the same time, we were always following the YouTube Creator Playbook to the point where a year or so ago, we went and spoke to a group of YouTube employees who were ad sales people. There's about 100 of them in the room, and we were telling them about, we followed the playbook to a T, and most YouTubers don't. And they were like, why? And we were like, because you wrote it. Like, you're the man now. They don't trust you. Like, and at the time, it just was common sense to us. Again, you mentioned Real SEO. There's a fringe element of the people who hate us that think we manipulate algorithms through SEO because they don't understand what SEO is. Because even when I was doing SEO for websites, before we got into this, I was helping websites rank better on Google. There's two ways to do that. There's white hat and there's black hat. Black hat is the cheating, dark web, underbelly, buying links bullshit that they, I guess, think we do with YouTube. They think we pay YouTube under the table.
Which is, of course, we don't. And the other part of that is YouTube's algorithm and their own sort of gatekeeping technology or whatever prevents you from doing that. Used to be you could do that. Like, remember the girls that would come on, they'd have the thumbnails, and they would react to videos, and there was always like big boob girls, and they would just be like, I don't know what I think about this. Kids react to this or whatever, and that's how they would get their views, because there was a thumbnail of a pretty girl, and people clicked on that because it's a pretty girl, and they just it was no content really. It was just them talking about a video or something. So there was ways early on to sort of black hat, but not like what they're talking about, where you could just manipulate the, you can just put in, angry sex into the
I mean, I still see people when we do a video in the same week or same day, another movie channel like Honest Trailers or How It Should Have Ended covers the same movie, and they think there's some kind of conspiracy.
It's a cabal.
Or that we planned it together, when all we're doing, all those channels are seeing what's coming out in theaters, what's going to be talked about, like Zombieland. We just released a Zombieland Sins video the day of this recording. Honest Trailers covered Zombieland. And I've already seen at least one tweet going, did you guys do this on purpose? Like, no, we're both smart. We're both tent-polling based on what's coming out to the theaters now and what people are going to be Googling. It's funny how much our story gets rewritten in hindsight by people who don't understand it. Like, I've seen it multiple times that we started making our videos longer after YouTube's algorithm started weighing watch time longer. We started making our videos longer 3 years before YouTube started valuing watch time more.
Well before.
And we've accidentally ourselves 5 or 6 different times into a favorable situation with YouTube's algorithm. It helps that our content is evergreen. It's not like we're not covering the daily news that a week from now will be boring and no one wants to click on. Anyway, I've already gotten way off track from where we're talking about.
I think that's part of the story. All of that is because when you see a channel get to this kind of success, there's always the skeptical out there who say you must be doing something shady to get to there, when it's really just dumb luck most of the time. And we can attest, because we tried to do videos before this. We tried to do a video which was, and I don't know if I want to say what it was. I don't know if we've said it before, but it was a review show. It was a movie review show, but it was a comedy one, and we were a little bit off kilter in that one. I thought it was funny, but it wasn't like you had people who didn't get it, and you had people who were nobody was seeing it. So it was a combination of nobody seeing it and the people who did see it just getting pissed off at you. You get one of those ratios where there's like 11 likes and if that many, and then 30 dislikes.
Yeah, we were doing total deadpan, making up shit about the movie, as though it was always like a week before anyone would have even been able to review it. So common sense should tell you we haven't seen it. And then we would just make up lies. I remember Bruce Willis was in every single movie. And we were just deadpanning the delivery, and people it didn't click. We had a handful of failures like that.
Yeah, but there was one video that sort of clicked and sort of started. That was the beginning of it sort of possibly becoming viable. Was we did a video about we want Brad Bird to direct the new Star Wars, and that one did like 25,000 views, I think, and that was a huge hit for us.
Yeah, I remember I saw Pixar people tweeting that at Brad Bird. Now this was right after they had picked up Star Wars, but before J.J. Abrams had been hired, and we were like, Brad Bird is perfect, and he still is.
Yeah.
Well, except for Tomorrowland.
That's funny that you say that too, because I think he got enough asking about that he ended up coming out and saying, no, I'm not doing Star Wars.
Yeah.
I am doing this movie I'm really excited about called Tomorrowland. So that was an initial like, we might be able to do this. But then I think we did like a Rihanna, Chris Brown video.
We did.
And it wasn't very good. And then I I was mainly focused on movie theater, real SEO stuff. You started doing a thing called the Cussing Channel, which was taking all the, all the kicking or all the cussing, or all the, it was kind of like the precursor to our bonus rounds.
Yeah, it's a supercut.
Yeah.
And people still make these today. I made one, this was 2012, I made one of all the gear shifting in Fast and Furious movies. At that point, I think there were only 5 movies. And Justin Lin, who had directed the most recent one, posted that video on Facebook. And then that video got copyright claimed to hell. But just 4 months ago, I saw somebody put out a video that went viral of all the gear shifting in Fast and Furious movies. The problem we discovered was that the videos could be popular, but they weren't the kind of content that people felt the need to subscribe to us to come back for more or know when we released another one. But yeah, those were super fun. All the spells in the Harry Potter movie. Yeah. I made so many people angry because I forgot the spell where Hermione makes her parents forget.
Oh.
Like I skipped that spell because she doesn't say a word. It's just her in the background doing something while music plays.
Maybe she came over to your house and did it to you.
Yeah, it could be.
Maybe she did.
Could be.
Maybe she did.
But then getting to where CinemaSins was, Jeremy makes this amazing Spider-Man one and sends it to me. And I'm like, yeah, this seems like something we could do because it's very quick, it's very fast, it's whatever. It's we get to play around, we get to have actual criticisms mixed with jokes and stuff like that. This seems like a viable thing. Let's see if this works. And on a personal note, that was a weird time for me because my brother died the day before this video got launched. And so like, all the success of Amazing Spider-Man that started happening, I was dealing with my brother, like just out of nowhere. And I was like, sort of torn too, because it was like, I'm having to deal with this, but I'm also like, wow, this is like doing well too. This is incredible, and it was not, we decided that we were going to have to do this, try to do one every week. That's another YouTube creator playbook thing. Have a constant schedule. And so we did, was it Dark Knight Rises or Avengers was next?
Avengers was the second one.
Avengers was next. And that one, and so both of these videos got picked up by various media.
And then we started soliciting media coverage.
Another
playbook by just bouncing the first one. So we would go to, I think we went to Wired and said, hey, BuzzFeed wrote about this. We'll let you see our next video early if you want to do an interview. And then the next week, I think I went to Forbes of all places. And we did that for, I remember keeping logs of coverage. Like, the third video was Dark Knight Rises. And I remember going out and scouting all the websites that wrote about it and embedded the video. And I was keeping a log of all this because for some reason, I guess I thought I was going to need to do that forever. But it was a weird time because I remember hurting for you. I remember wanting to be sensitive to you. And yet also I needed you because I didn't feel comfortable launching a video by myself. And so it was like, here I am about to email Chris during this rough time to ask him to look at a jokey video about the Avengers and whatnot.
And I think at that point I wrote a little bit on the Avengers, not much. It was still mainly your thing that you were doing. I think I may have contributed a few to it. It was, I think, Dark Knight Rises where I started writing a few more because that's where I think that was Liam Neeson isn't killing anyone in the scene and all that. A lot of those things came up from there, and I remember that's where I first started. But I was still very heavily a projectionist and everything. I didn't think this was going to be anything that we would become.
You stayed in that job all the way to like spring or summer, didn't you?
Yeah, stayed till 2013, summer 2013.
Yeah.
Real SEO the same way. I stayed until.
Because we're looking at these numbers early on, Chris and I, and like, you've got 50,000 subscribers. Like, that's not nothing. Yeah. That's something. This video has this many 200,000 views. Well, that's something. But it wasn't like quit your job something until we actually started getting money from YouTube. I didn't believe it was going to happen. I thought it was all pixels. And then I remember those first few months because the channel kept growing, and it was only a few months until we were making enough that we started talking about, okay, we can quit our jobs. He was projectionisting and real SEOing. I was trying to be a freelance video consultant. So I was doing shit like driving to Atlanta and interviewing doctors and filming them and then editing those videos down to put on their website, trying to do SEO to get them some traction through YouTube to their doctor practice or what have you. I was not very happy at that in that job. I'm also not a very good videographer, as I've learned. But around the summer of 2013, we both kind of quit the other jobs we had going on. And then was it 2014 when we brought you in with Music Video Sins?
Yeah, because I had left for Chicago, but had stayed in contact with you guys. Matter of fact, we were out, I think right after or right before Amazing Spider-Man came out. And I remember Jeremy looking up the definition of viral on his phone to see like if they met the
Do
threshold.
we have enough views to count?
Well, and also we always have to bring up too that the Dark Knight Rises video was tweeted out by Kevin Smith.
Yep.
And was a huge boon to the whole thing.
Huge.
Didn't Dane Cook do something? Too?
Dane Cook did as
Dane
well.
Cook also tweeted us out.
Yes.
I think
Yes.
that's probably who got it for you.
Yeah.
I think you should owe all your fame to
For
Dane
sure.
Cook.
For sure. And there were some early one there was also, and I think we've discussed this before, there was also discussion after the first few videos. Should we change it up? Should we do an everything right with or whatever, which of course has been done recently. But we were trying to think, should we change this up? And then just eventually decided, because we were going to do that on Prometheus. We were going to just, this past few have been sort of trolling. Why don't we just troll even more and just say everything's great about Prometheus, because that's the movie everybody hates.
Yeah.
But then we were just like, no, we need to keep it the same.
Thank God we did, because Prometheus' School of Running Away from Things is one of our most popular jokes.
Yeah.
And every time a GIF of somebody running in a straight line away from a falling tree or falling electrical tower, that's every 4 or 5 months one of these goes viral on Twitter, and I see constant. Our fans are like, Prometheus School of Running Away from Things.
Yeah, and that was because you can tell that we were trying to experiment then, because I was actually the narrator on Prometheus, and so like when that video came out, this is when we were doing comments a lot. I was just, every other one would be like, well, this is not Jeremy. This is not Jeremy. I hate this. This is not Jeremy. This sucks. Blah 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 blah. And I was just like, I can kind of take that, but like, I don't want it to ruin the channel.
Yeah.
I don't want it to be something where people are actively jumping ship. And so we just decided to, for good or ill, to have Jeremy do everything from that point forward. If we had a little bit more foresight, we would have done it where we sort of did it back and forth, and that way people would have been used to it.
See, as I remember it, that was the plan. And then because you were dealing with your brother's situation, and you even went out of state, you went to Florida at one point, I ended up narrating the first 3, and by the time we got you back in town and ready to go, we were worried the fans were going to reject it. I will say, I think I've talked a little bit about this. We are going to move forward at some point in the future on commercial sins. And the plan for that channel is to have a revolving door of narrators. Barrett's going to do some, Danae's going to do some, Dice is going to do some, Chris will do some, Jonathan will do some. I might not do any, except for the first few that we've already made that I did. Yeah. For good or ill. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we decide to start Music Video Sins. We're just going to skip right over Branson's. And we have Barrett helping us write these because he's a big music lover. And Barrett starts harping on us about a podcast. And as I remember, Barrett was, every time I would see him or talk to him, he would say, you guys need to do a podcast. Why don't you guys have a podcast? And so we basically said, all right, we'll do a podcast, but you have to do all the work.
Yes.
You have to do the editing. You have to plug the microphones into the thing. I literally told him, I just want to be able to walk into the studio, sit down, talk, and leave. And if that's the case, we'll do a podcast. And thank God we did.
198 times plus mini-pods.
Yeah. And it's become, I think, maybe the most authentic place to hear us talk about movies, and the place where we do actual reviews sometimes, and where the core fans come to get to know us a little better and feel like they're sitting in the room talking with us. There are 6 people in here today. I've got YouTube gold buttons on the wall. And largely because Barrett was kind of an annoying dick about do a podcast.
Was that part of the playbook too?
Do a podcast
Get
or
a dick.
get a dick?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get an annoying dick.
Yeah. Eat a dick. There was so we started off at the Made In Studios doing podcasts. Us all jammed into this like little control room.
Not even the studio, the
Right.
control room.
Yeah, and then we, because Barrett was still in Chicago at the time, doing it over, what was that service we were?
It's called ZenCaster.
Yeah, we were ZenCaster. Are they still alive and well?
No, they're booming. They're doing really, really
Yeah,
well. At the
awesome.
time, it was like one person in New Zealand that I would have to email like on opposite schedules, basically.
Yeah.
And it was one of the only services at the time that could really do high quality remotes with all 3 of us going in at the same time. But we've definitely evolved our sound over the years.
So yeah, Barrett decides to move back to town, largely because we're so awesome.
That's right.
And Chris decides to buy a new house.
Yep.
And he has this room here. It's one of the bedrooms in the house.
Yeah, it's a tiny, tiny room. Yeah.
It's not big, but it's let's say it's 15 by 15.
I feel like this is meant to be the office in a single family home. And the room farther down is supposed to be another bedroom, and the master bedroom's obviously a bedroom. But I think this is either supposed to be your baby in a crib room or an office. And having neither of those things, I was there was nothing. This room had nothing going for it. There was nothing going on in this room at all. I had some stuff stored away in here, like if ever needed it and everything. But like for the most part, it was just not being used. And we were having trouble finding like, a good place, a good way to record and everything. We've even recorded in my closet.
We have.
We did.
But eventually I just sort of was like, you know what? We might as well just turn this whole thing into a studio.
And then it became like a movie montage because I'd come over and there would be these boxes of foam tiles everywhere. And Chris and I would be going out to shop for like fucking, frames for the posters and stuff like that. And, the desk and the computer and the mixer and all that stuff. And we put it all together, and eventually became what it is today.
I will say the sound paneling, I'm not sure if it's the carpet or the sound paneling that does the heavy lifting. Because it was echoey as fuck in this room.
Yes, it was.
And I'm having that situation right now in my new office space because it's got hardwood floors. And so I bought 15 of these sound panels and put them up on a wall in a pattern. Didn't do dick.
Yeah.
It's still pretty echoey in there.
What we found is that we had to go like the full Monty. Like we had to really cover all this shit to really get the dry sound and this thick carpet too. But it took a lot of experimentation.
Yeah.
Stuff.
But I think, again, we've said this a lot. There aren't enough podcasts that care about their audio quality, which is to say there are too many that don't give a shit about their audio quality. And maybe their fans are fine with that, but we take pride in giving you good audio quality as good as we can. So we got some good mics. We got rid of the echoey stuff. I like this studio.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing when all this stuff got put in and everything, because I would be walking in upstairs and I would be talking to cats and stuff, and be like, you hear all this reverb and everything, and then I'd walk in here and suddenly it would just die. Yeah, it would just completely die. Okay, I want to involve our other 3 people in here. We gave
we have to?
We gave a good sketch of how everything started and everything. How do we want to go about this? Do we want to say how you guys got into this, or do we want to talk about when you first sort of were aware of us?
Well, I think Aaron has a weird story about how he became aware of.
Yeah, I don't. Jeremy, do you remember when I found it? Because we had been doing on my YouTube channel, we had been doing movie reviews together, as well as on the podcast, and so we would Skype together for those, and then YouTube was just experimenting with Hangouts on Air, that kind of stuff. So we would use that to do a multi-site movie review of movies, and we would catch up at the beginning of each one because we've been friends since college.
Yeah. And that by the way was the reason I ended up having to watch Alex Cross. Just for the record.
Yeah. And probably a few other movies. So anyway, so we would catch up at the beginning before we would go live. And I said, Jeremy, have you seen this video where they do like everything wrong with the movie and it's hilarious? And Jeremy looks at me and goes, that's my voice, dude.
How do you not notice that? We were in radio together.
And then it all clicked and I was like, you're right, that is your voice. That's amazing.
But I mean, you could have told them beforehand, hey, by the way.
That was a magical moment. Well, and we had just reviewed Amazing Spider-Man 2 on Sif Pop, a couple weeks ago, and so I was just like, oh yeah, we just talked about the cranes and all that stuff. It was beautiful. I loved it so much. And then since then, I just kind of lurked in the background, like, where's Waldo? Just kind of like, talking about what you're doing. And
well, you guessed it on SinCast.
That was kind of my first exposure to the larger Sin audience, was coming in and talking movies. I don't remember if my first one was I think it was just a year in movies. I think it was like,
well, no, I think your first one was, because we set about trying to get guests that were industry related, but not something we knew about. So we did the special effects guy, and we talked to Jeremy Simser, and you were our movie reviewer because you were reviewing movies on television. Do you still do that?
Yes. Yeah.
And so I think that was the first time we had you in, was here's a guy that actually does review movies, unlike us, and then we talked shop. The next one, I think, was a year in review.
And I still remember listening to that episode. I remember, Aaron's a funny dude, because like one of the first things you said was, hey, between the four of us, we could, we have like a combined 3 million listeners. And I was like, oh, that guy's cool.
Yeah. So and I think as far as like Jeremy welcoming me into this world, like the meeting Barrett and Chris and just kind of getting to know you guys, and you are always very welcoming. And so, you guys had me back, and we did podcast stuff a few times after that. One of my favorite things of the year now is to come in and do the year in review with you guys every, January, February kind of. So that's become a fun thing. And then, then Jeremy and I started talking about, hey, do you want to try to write something? And he was like, hey, why don't you throw some sample sins my way on, I think, La La Land.
It was La La Land. We were sneaky a little bit because I threw them into the script without telling these two guys that you had written them.
Yeah.
I just sent it in as though they were all mine, and after the fact said, okay, so Dicer wrote some of those? What do you guys think about having him write some more? And that started your snowball.
Yeah, and it snowballed pretty quickly. And so, it's my year anniversary is actually today. As far as working full time,
that's
crazy
with CinemaSins.
Well, and I want to give you guys credit, you and Jonathan, because we're jumping right now over Jonathan's origin story for a second. But
that's okay.
Much like Barrett pushing us on the podcast, you guys came to us with this TV Sins push, basically.
Yeah,
we think we can make this work, and in large part, TV Sins exists because you guys really wanted to do it and sold us on it. And
I think the thing that sold me that it could happen is because I think the main thing we had talked about with the problem with doing television was there's just too much information. Like there's how do you take into account, an entirety of a series? And so we amped up the narrator's ignorance on context, right? And we narrowed it down to start with pilots and just kind of figure out, okay, well, in a pilot, you're seeing the very first effort. And so the narrator doesn't have to be responsible for anything that came before it. And it kind of gave us an avenue in to at least experiment with it and figure out how the form worked. And now we've expanded beyond that. We're doing non-pilots. We're figuring out other things that people want to, see. So I think just that kind of genesis. And then the fact that Game of Thrones was ending. And I think I came to you and said, hey, the perfect time to launch TV Sins would be that final season, of Game of Thrones, and to kick it off with Game of Thrones. So it just kind of behind the scenes made it work. And
my favorite story about that, and this was when you and I obviously started communicating back and forth, because I was just at that time getting like reacquainted with Adobe Premiere and stuff, because I hadn't messed with Adobe Premiere since like Chris and I were in college. And so I wasn't very comfortable like building this. And so Aaron did a lot of the building, the editing, and putting the clips together and everything. And then we both wrote the script. And then, I don't know, after a few back and forths, we got it done. It probably took us a few weeks, working on other CinemaSins stuff in between. And then we sent it off. And then it was just crickets for like 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And I remember us both, when we were working on scripts together and stuff for other things, and we would just be like, hey, have you happened to talk to Jeremy? Or did anybody say anything? But then we just get this email randomly one day from Barrett saying, "I'm so sorry we haven't jumped on this yet. We should have looked at this a couple weeks ago. Chris and I are going to look at it right now. That kind of thing." And then from there, it just, it took off.
And that first one, I did the narration for
that was
first
the other
one
thing.
and sent that off. We were kind of figuring out if maybe that worked because, Jeremy, one of the other things was you've obviously got so much narration on your plate. And we've already touched on that, a little bit. But
yeah, you hit me again yesterday, by the way.
Yeah.
I went in the closet and did 2 big narrations. And then I was like, whew, I'm done. I've narrated everything I have to narrate. And literally 5 minutes later, you sent me a script.
My timing, man. It's just my timing.
I know. I love after Aaron and I send a script and then I'll go on Twitter and Jeremy's like, "God damn it." Tweeting out about how he was done and then we screwed him.
Yeah.
So anyway, we were concerned about that and we wanted to see if maybe we could tiptoe in. But as with the other things, you are the voice and the fans have come to expect that for good or ill, as Chris has said. And so, we decided to have you do those as well and kind of shift some other things around. And but yeah, we're talking behind the scenes about how to navigate other people into narration on commercial sins, and we've got some fun ideas.
Well, and just for definition's sake, maybe you guys listeners don't know who does what. All 6 of us write for CinemaSins, and Danae and Jonathan and Dicer are the primary writers for TV Sins, although Barrett and Chris and I will sometimes toss some sins in of our own. And then Jonathan and Barrett pretty much write music video sins.
Mostly Barrett on the writing
and
now.
music from behind.
All Barrett.
So we all, and then when a huge movie comes along, like Avengers Infinity War, what have you, we usually do what we call all hands on deck, where everybody will write some sins for that, just to get the best quality that we can out of all of us.
We did. The first all hands on deck was we had different writers at that point that I was a part of was Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane, yeah.
And you, poor wonderful man, offered to combine all of that stuff. Didn't you have 300 sins or something?
I don't know if
that?
it was that many even because, Citizen Kane is excellent.
Right.
I think it was, so we had 5 writers, I think, and combined all of those. And I think it ended up being 180, 200
before
I shaved them down. Of course, we all hit certain moments a few times, but yeah, the all hands on deck. Those are the ones where I'm like, this movie's really good, guys. We've got to come up with something.
I think mine was Arrival. I think my first all hands on deck was Arrival.
That was mine too, and then we did Ex Machina. Those are the only 2 I've done.
Yeah. Since then, there might have been a couple that I might consider that, but I've only had 2 writers on it, I think. But because now it's we have so many things going on at this point. Trying to draw all the writers on one script is a waste.
Yeah. Because you're pulling somebody off of something.
Yeah. So
wait, we forgot to tell your story.
Oh, I mean, well,
remember how it started?
Yeah, I mean, well, I've been friends with Chris for 27 years. That sound right? I think I was 16.
That does sound right.
Yeah, I've been friends with Barrett since my early 20s, so 20 plus years with Barrett. So I knew these guys. Funny thing about Chris, if as a friend, he's one of the best friends you can have. He'll drop of the hat. He'll help you out, but he will never tell you shit about what's going on in his life. So so I get a text from Barrett. I think I was probably at Disney, and I get a text from Barrett. I think you guys had done 3 or 4 videos. Maybe you had done the first 3 at this point. And he's like, "Have you seen this shit Chris has been doing?" And I'm like, "No." And then so I watched it. I'm like, "Oh my God, this is fucking awesome." Then I found out about the Kevin Smith thing and the Dane Cook thing.
Yeah.
Which made me laugh.
Yeah.
And then I hollered at him like, "Why haven't you told me this?" He's like, "Dude, I haven't told anybody about this."
Yeah.
And
it was very, very hard for me.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom always does that too. I don't hear anything from you. I don't tell anybody anything. Unless it's something that I feel like is really, that's why I don't like Facebook. There's way more reasons to hate Facebook these days, but I don't do Facebook either. I don't go on there and go, "Hey guys, here's what's going on with me. Here's how I think about things." So I've never been that way, but yeah, especially in those first 3 or 4 when it wasn't a thing. It wasn't anything.
Well, and I guess, and you don't want to we're sports fans. You don't want to jinx it. Just get everybody involved, and then it doesn't keep going. No, I totally get that. It was just funny. I still remember to this day Barrett texted me, and then let's see. I think it was November or December. I want to say it was 2016. Barrett hollered at me, and I had been on the podcast a couple times. I filled in for Jeremy on one of the years since we were alive. It was 1998, and
Out of Sight.
that was a lot. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I know I felt like I had to pick Out of Sight, or you would have killed me. No, that was my favorite. But and then I did the Fantastic Beasts mini pod because you didn't want to see it. Jeremy didn't want to see it.
This is true.
Wise decision.
Yeah, very wise decision. And then I don't know, like maybe a couple weeks later, I get a text from Barrett like, "Hey, do you want to try to write some music video sins?" And I'm like, "Yeah, definitely." And I think my first one was like that January. It was oh God, I can't remember his name. He passed away. It was Ariana Grande's Mac Miller.
Mac Miller, yeah.
It was the Mac Miller Ariana Grande video. That was my first one, and that was a lot of fun. And so I worked for a few months, and then it became a little more official that I actually became like a writer for music video sins, and I was involved in the scheduling and everything like that. I would think I was doing like one a week. And then that August, just like literally out of nowhere, I get an email. Aaron and I both get an email from Chris. It was like first thing in the morning, like I was about to go to work, and it just said "Welcome to CinemaSins," and I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" Like nobody had said anything to me. No, like
We
I
run
was
a tight ship.
I was very confused, and that was exciting. That was like I remember like I didn't even like want to go to work. I was just like, I'm just gonna go start writing now, and I got scheduled. Annabelle was my first one, which I did with Chris, and I still remember.
Nut Job was my first
Yeah.
official
Oh, nice.
script.
And
Yeah.
I still remember writing that script very well because I was oddly enough at Disney when Chris sent me the Combine, and there were so many notes on it. Like there was just all this red type. And I hadn't read any of them yet. And my wife was like next to me, and I looked over. I was like, I got the Combine from Chris. She's like, "Oh, cool. Like, is it good?" I was like, I might be fired. Like, I'm not sure. But then all it was Chris it was mostly like tips and just like this is okay, but it worked. We kind of want to do it this way. And then even at the end, you wrote something like, "This is a really good first script. Like I think you're gonna be fine." And that's mostly all it was. So it ended up being fine. And then moving forward, everything just kind of became a blur after that.
I've got to preface things a lot with the new people who come in is that I'm a dick. I'm kind of a dick.
Your notes are nice though.
But no, I mean, I'm not mean to you,
No, yeah.
but I'm just like, I will, say this isn't very good.
Exactly.
I'll tell you why. And I'll, it's such a like, subjective form that we're in that a lot of times you're like, well, I could be wrong, but it just doesn't hit me the right way.
It's absolutely essential, having gone through it with music video sins originally back in 2014 or whatever, personally, where Chris will give you some straight talk. And it's totally useful, and you have to be receptive to it, because what we do, we were talking about this yesterday, what we do is so specific. Not a lot of people can do it. It's a weird thing to say in the way that we do it, in the way that we phrase it, in the voice that we have through Jeremy as the conduit. But the channel has a voice too, and it took me a lot.
Yeah.
And poor Chris and Jeremy had to go through this of directing me and for me to listen, and it happens to everybody. We have to kind of go through that molding to get into this singular voice.
But what's great is everybody has been able to be molded, but still bring themselves and something new
Absolutely.
to the table.
Absolutely.
Oh, I thought you were like everybody's been molded,
No.
but Danae.
Except Danae. Yeah.
And I want to say this too, because I know this isn't about like me and Barrett and Chris's friendship, but I will say this: when Chris says he's a dick, I think that's funny because I've just known him for so long. But like, I think the one thing why the three of us specifically have been friends for so long, because that's not easy to do. Like having friendships for 20 plus years is not an easy. I mean, it's like being married for 20 plus years in some ways. But why I consider these guys my brothers is because, and like my daughter calls them Uncle Chris and Uncle Barrett, is because they are very upfront, and you always know where you stand with them, and that's the one thing. And same with Jeremy, same with Aaron. I'm learning same thing with Danae. And I think that's the most important thing to me when it comes to stuff like that. So what you're calling being a dick, I'm like, thank you, because
Thank you for your dicks.
Can I please have more?
Yeah.
Can I please have
another?
another? But no. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. Danae, tell us your story.
Well, it's funny because I came to meet you guys through Aaron. We've been in radio together for like 7-8 years, working together, not only to do a daily show, but then also podcasting. And then we managed other things inside of the radio station. And as time went on and he kind of would tell me more about your guys' friendship and stuff, he'd be like, oh, you'd love these guys so much because they shoot straight and, da-da-da-da-da. So I would totally echo what you're talking about. I'm the kind of person, too, that I'd rather it be just a forward conversation and doesn't need a lot of fluff and buff just to kind of get to the point. But
Fluff and buff?
is that like the wrong? I've
know
used
what?
this several times, and I always get the weirdest looks from you guys.
I'm at this point used to you saying it, so it just goes over.
It may
me.
not be a thing, but I know what you mean.
Good, that's good.
There's a fluff and buff option down the street.
Yeah, there is.
I think it was not that long ago. It was this year that Aaron was talking with me back in the studio that we work in Springfield, and he was saying that you guys were thinking about hiring a female writer. And so I was like, I'd be horrible at that, and then left it. And then it just wouldn't leave me. Like, it wouldn't go away. That maybe that would be something that I would like to try. And then I started working with other companies and organizations and picking up projects, and it just kind of wouldn't go away. And so I asked Aaron to just see if that would be a potential option. And then I started working with Jeremy to figure out what scripts would be good to sort of send a few in, and did the same kind of acclimating process where you kind of write for a little while and your crap is sort of hidden by other people's brilliance, but like your best ones make it in. That makes you feel pretty good, but then like you need to get better and better and better. So I'm still kind of on that trajectory of trying to get up to the bar. All the way up there, the A-team bar. So.
No, I mean this is a podcast, not a staff meeting, but your scripts have just continued to get better and better as we go along.
It's like what you said, that you've got to like think about the narrator's perspective, but then you're also kind of sprinkling your own stuff. I sent a script to Chris yesterday that literally has a drawing in it.
Nice, nice.
I sent one to Aaron that had memes in it, and it's like, even if that stuff isn't used, it's still like, hey, this is just in my brain somewhere. So if it's something that could work, or it needs to be tweaked to come from the perspective in this way. So I'm learning how to give what the channel needs and what the fans love, and then sprinkle in kind of new stuff.
I love getting your scripts when we work on CinemaSins together. One of my favorite screenplay writers is Shane Black, and if you ever read any of his scripts, they're hilarious because like his first script was Lethal Weapon, and he has this thing in there where he's describing the bad guy's house. And he writes something underneath it, like a big ass house that I would buy if this makes money, And that's what you remind me of, because you'll just write little notes and stuff like that. Like this, I mean, this is kind of what I'm doing.
Well, and you never know what type of thing could actually end up in a video.
Yeah,
sometimes. That's why I like stuff like that. I haven't seen that, by the way, yet. But,
I'm super excited to show it to you.
But those type of things we used to, in talking about early videos and everything, we used to do little like subliminal insert type stuff. There was one where I think it was it Batman Begins or was it Dark Knight? No, it was Dark Knight Rises that had Joffrey in it, right? No, it was Batman Begins that had the kid who played Joffrey.
Batman Begins.
It was Batman Begins, and like so we made little references. We made a little reference to like the incest in Game of Thrones that led to this kid being doing a little Game of Thrones thing in Batman Begins and everything. So there was like a part where we made a little bit of reference of Game of Thrones and like just the tiniest sliver of Jaime and Cersei like in the first episode banging it out in the
Well, and we did the real person that's been struck by lightning the most times.
That was an X-Men.
Yeah, we flashed like for maybe 1 or 2 frames.
Yeah,
people were like, "Who's that old man's face?"
This made me think this was a narrative thing, but Chris and I worked. This was pretty recent. I don't remember what script it was, but it's in the last few months. I wrote like a Pig Latin. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I put something in Pig Latin. I even put in commas like, Jeremy might hate me, but this is just what came in my mind. And then Chris Rebecca like, no, it's really funny, but yeah, Jeremy would fucking kill you. So we're not doing that.
I really there's such a the movie or the videos that you guys get to see on YouTube is there's so much work that goes into it. And when I started, it was just watch this TV show or watch this movie and give your script. But then as these months have gone on, you learn more and more and more about the process and how much work it takes. And then Behind the Sins kind of started. What were you, like 18th episode?
Yeah.
So like just a few months back, we started that podcast because it's fun to talk about the behind the scenes stuff. And that's really where I started to kind of enjoy even more peeling back the curtain and talking to the fans about, like what we look up. Game of Thrones was my first script. And the things that I looked up to find out if this stuff really happens, like people bleeding out and bloating in water or whatever. That was like, how this is such an interesting job.
Well, and Aaron didn't tell me you were writing on him. And at first, like when he sent it to me initially, and he wanted to wait for me to send it back to him, probably kind of like Jeremy was doing with him.
Yeah, I learned it from Jeremy.
He wanted to wait for me to send it back to him.
This is
I learned it from you.
By the way, just as an aside, that's a great way.
It is.
That is
It's
a great.
excellent.
I would prefer it that way. In fact, I don't feel like I was tricked in any way.
No.
Like,
They were like
because if you tell me this person I like wrote a script,
yeah.
and you read it, then you're going to give them more credence than you normally would. Whereas if you just say, hey, I wrote this, well, then I can come to you and say, well, this one's oddly shit.
Yeah.
Or this one is oddly shit.
This whole script is great, but number 41 sucks, Paul.
Right.
But on that Game of Thrones script, there were like 6 alts. And I picked Danae's every time. I didn't know.
That's when I knew I loved Jonathan.
But
right.
But I also thought it was weird because I'm like, Aaron is writing a lot about like menstruation cycles. And I was in breastfeeding, and I'm like, man, that dude did some research.
Yeah, man.
I know. I mean, this is why we both wanted to hire a woman as our next writer and
Absolutely.
needed to because, there's a script recently where you wrote something about they must have put that cashmere sweater on the high heat cycle. It's not something any of the 5 of us white dudes would ever have thought of. I remember in Aladdin, you wrote a sin because he just refers to the magic carpet as a he first time he meets it. And you wrote something very simple like, why is it a he? Like, how do you know it's a he? And I remember I emailed these 2 guys and I was like, we would never have written that because we're dudes and we don't see the privilege that men have the way women see it.
Yeah.
And so we need that kind of perspective. But we're next hires, we're going back to white guys.
She also does insane research. Like I thought Barrett did research. Oh, sorry. There's a laugh going.
I made an inappropriate
No, it's
joke.
okay. I didn't hear it. Sorry.
That's good.
No, didn't I do that in a script just recently where I said we're joking, like get that woman out of the screen?
Yeah, that was a recent script.
And it's fun when I do those things because then when the audience gets mad, it's like, but a female wrote that, so y'all can just.
You can also
they won't know that though.
No, they don't
You
care.
can also tell when Danae doesn't like whatever she's watching because she'll just write this extra sentence. I fucking hate this.
Yes.
Or something like. And I'll have to cut those because like we can have one of those. We can't have 10.
Yeah.
I'm just writing how I feel.
My favorite Danae story is the fact that you reinvented the bonus round.
Yeah,
you
I
had
didn't know that was
no
a
clue
thing.
that was a thing.
Oh,
and
that
you
was
did
great.
One.
Yeah.
I forget what video it was
Men in
for.
Black.
We talked about it on BTS.
It was the cooking in Men in
Yeah,
Black.
yeah.
So she just wrote, here are all the times that he uses this
It
stupid
annoyed
car
me
clicker.
so much.
That's awesome.
And she listed them out. She said, I don't know what you want to do with these, but it's really annoying. I was like, you just reinvented the bonus round.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's fun.
The bonus round has also evolved over time because it first came up in the room because the room after writing it down and everything, it was like there's a lot here, but there's not enough. There's just not enough. There's not enough to tell you how bad this movie is because while I can tell you each individual thing that's awful and each thing has 3 or 4 other things that are awful about it, there's just not enough here. And finally came to the realization that, hey, what if we did one of those kind of a supercut type of thing in this and then did like multiples and all sorts of stuff. So like all the times when he would say, oh, hi. And all the times I think there was one bonus round that got cut out that was every time someone said that Lisa looked hot or pretty.
Oh yeah.
I think we ended up cutting because that was another thing back then was trying to get the time down to 5 or 6 minutes, and this one at the time was like a blockbuster 8 minutes. And so like so we had like 6 bonus rounds in the room, and they were in the middle of the video, and like they were doing all these we were counting the amount that was in the bonus round, adding it to the main video, going right back into the video. And then like, of course, I think the numbers got completely screwed, especially after cutting out bonus rounds. And after a while, people were like, hey, on here, it says the sin number is this, and then it becomes that. And like, probably. Probably so. I don't know. But then as more and more people and it got more and more complex, it became more of a, let's just count 1, 2, 3. We don't need to do multiples all the time. And
do you guys remember how long your original videos took you, like from start to finish?
For fucking ever, because we were doing all of it. Like you can. Any one of us can look at a video now and kind of understand how much work goes into it. But back in the day when we didn't have the editors that made in, and so it was Chris and I, like we would both write the script. I would narrate it, and then one of us would spend like 25 fucking hours putting that thing together.
I would start.
That's what we came up with. We actually did kind of the math on the latest episode of Behind the Sins
with Chris Creasy.
And decided it was about a 30 to 40 man-hour process.
Yeah, I've always said about 40 man-hours.
Because he said he can actually, he's gotten to where he can do what from start to finish, like about 6 hours now. Is that what he said? Like after he gets which you've spent time doing narration, we wrote the script, all that stuff. So
it's just interesting, something that you know. When you're watching it, you're not thinking about it, that there's 30 plus hours that went into
because the
video.
YouTube Creator Playbook was so specific about keeping to a schedule, there were a lot of late nights.
Yeah.
There were a lot of like, dude, I know it's 11:30. I'm going to have this next version up for you here as soon as possible.
I remember being up as late as 4:30 sometimes.
Yeah.
Like PM?
Yes.
I can still remember when people found out, when I got to come do this full time, people were like, that must be really nice getting to do this now. And I'm just like, you don't understand. Like, this is more of a full-time job than like what I had. Like, because I mean, even just reviewing a video, I mean, that sometimes is 45. That's an hour sometimes.
Yeah.
That you've got to make time for.
Back in that day, I would start a video on Thursday. I think. Remember, we're coming out with one on Tuesday. I would start on Thursday because I had all these other things going on. So like Thursday, I would drop all the video down from the script. That would be the thing. I would drop video down, and then the next day I would get your narration or something, and I would drop all the narration where it needed to be. And then by Saturday, that's where I'm like shaping everything and getting it to where it needs to be. And then Sunday doing final stuff on it, and then that was how.
And you're working another job.
And working another job.
And it's not the kind of thing that you can. You can't start with a very big template for these videos, because if we removed a sin in one video, you can't use any of that numbering as your template because you've just brought that sin reduction into a new video that may not have one. So you can have the assets, the numbers, but you still have to manually place them one at a time. And sometimes people think there's like a plug-in where we just put put the plug-in up at the top left corner, and it does the 1 to 2 to 3 to 4.
If we could somehow program a macro of some sort that every time the ding happened, it would change the number, I would do that in a heartbeat.
I bet you we could find somebody to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's also like people ask why we don't subtitle the whole thing, and it's like because we'd be like literally typing everything they said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you at one point tell me when you first started them, you did the timer with individual numbers, or did you always have a timer?
The timer has always been a timer.
Okay.
The sin count has always been individual.
Okay.
Individual assets for each number that you see on the timer.
Yeah.
And that's why there are probably maybe 10 to 20 videos out there that have wrong numbers here and there.
Oh yeah.
Because that's just what's going to happen, especially when you have sin removals. And it would go 55 to 54 to 55 and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Like the least fun thing to hear is we need to cut this sin and renumber.
Right.
Because with me, it's always like the video I'm working on. It's like buried. It'll be like the 5th sin. And Barrett would be like, I'm sorry, man. We got to get rid of this.
Yeah.
And he'll be like, this is my fault. Like, that helps.
There was one on Justice League.
Yeah, it was.
I was doing the edit for Justice League, and the second goddamn sin
Yeah.
we went back and forth. It was a sin about Joss Whedon, and then we were referencing Zack Snyder, and then we were like, well, maybe we should take it out, cut and renumber. I cut and renumbered that motherfucker, and then we came back and we're like, well, why don't we just say something about Joss Whedon?
Well, that's one of the biggest misunderstanding things that happen. You have several different things that happen. First off, you're like, we need to cut this, so you send that message out there. But you don't expect until there's an agreement about it that anybody's going to do something about it.
Yeah.
This would happen with Jeremy a lot. Like, I would be like, I don't know, we should probably remove that, I don't know, and would not hear anything back. And then I'd be like, you know what, no, I think we can change that. And he'd be like, God damn it, I've already done that. And I'm like, I didn't hear you say.
A lot of this is just basic human interaction. Like, my wife is obsessed. Like, if we're having a phone call, every single phone call ends with bye. And if we don't do that, I didn't hear you say bye. I wasn't sure we were done with the call, because that is the signifying. Yeah. So you would send an email saying, I think we should cut this. And I wouldn't say bye. I wouldn't say, I agree. Yeah. I would just go cut that shit. And then by the time he has, maybe tweaked his opinion a little bit, I've already sent a new version with a full cut, and he'd be like, God damn it, I wanted to discuss it.
Yeah.
Well, and we do the notes a little different now. And sometimes, like, I'm sure this happens to Aaron too. We'll be at the computer with the edit in front of us as you guys are making notes. And I've gotten to where the point, because this happened to me a couple times, where, like, Chris would say, let's cut something. Barrett would come in and be like, no, let's not do that, because, and then they would agree, and they'd be like, I already did it. So now I just, like, I'll change, like, text stuff, but, like, I just leave everything else alone until you guys are done.
Best thing to do is to wait until everybody's agreed about everything, because that's what. But what was the one? There was one we were both up for. It was, I believe, the first Conjuring.
Okay.
And I believe the sin was about Patrick Wilson saying this was the best Latin I've ever heard.
Yeah, but backwards.
And you had this big thing about, like, how is this the best Latin you've ever heard? Because all this other stuff. And I was sitting there going, we know what he means there, right?
I remember this too.
I was like, we know what he means. I mean, he's not saying, And then you said something like, no, dude, blah, blah, blah. This is for real. This is a sin and everything. I was like, okay. And then you cut it. You cut it. And I was like, okay, you've convinced me. And you're like, well, I've already cut it.
My point is, nobody knows what Latin sounds like. It hasn't been spoken in generations. It's a dead language.
Yeah.
I have been,
and what happened the next day, we publish it, and you're arguing with people about Latin.
Yes,
I was indeed.
I have been extremely impressed with the problem solving amongst this group. Like, just like you talk about shooting straight. Mm-hmm. I think everybody understands our goal is all the same. Mm-hmm. We all want it to be the best it can be, and so you can. I will never forget the Chekhov argument.
Yeah, that was fun.
That we had. Where Chris thought he was being gaslighted.
Yeah. Oh, I did. Can I tell this story?
Yes, please.
Yes, tell me. I don't know it.
Okay.
I feel like all of a sudden
I just got to witness it. I was not involved.
So Chekhov's gun is a literary thing, or that you mention something, it has to be employed later on. Now, Jeremy wrote this sin. Now, this may be what I think of Jeremy more than I think of Chekhov's gun, but I thought it was a Star Trek reference because he's a Star Trek guy.
That's
and
true.
It's Chekhov. And I was like, okay, didn't even think about the literary thing at all. Because also I had not seen Skyscraper. I had not seen that.
Well,
movie.
and the sin doesn't say Chekhov's gun either. It says Chekhov's 30-story park or
Right.
Which is
whatever.
a sin we both wrote, by the way.
Right,
on
but yeah,
that-
we
on that
both wrote the
script.
same thing.
And even during the approval process, you said, oh, we both wrote Chekhov stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, cool, whatever. It's Chekhov, Star Trek. And so, like, it gets to video time and the Chekhov sin comes up and I was like, hey, is that how you spell Chekhov? And I went to a Star Trek thing, and then and it was like, no, I think Chekhov doesn't have an H between the K and the O. And I was like, hey guys, this is spelled like this. And they're like, I got notes back saying, no, you can spell it either way. And I was like, the fuck you say? You can spell it either way. I was like, I went through Google. I went to the IMDb. I was like, was it ever spelled this way?
Send me a screenshot.
And then I went to, I like found Star Trek on my computer and like did one of those snapshot things on the fucking
Walter Koenig
Walter Koenig is Chekhov. And then Barrett, in a diplomatic way, he should have just said, "You're fucking stupid." Goes, I think this is about Chekhov's gun, right? You know, it's like this is and then it was. I went into the IMDb and I was like, "Oh, it's about Chekhov's gun." Oh, there's an H there. Oh, Jeremy was trying to say it could go both ways. All this bullshit, and I was like,
in season 2 they spelled it this way,
right.
and in season 3 it changed.
I was like, fuck you guys. I was like, I know what I see. And so then
that was the day when I was glad I got email alerts, even though I wasn't involved.
Yeah. So then it, and finally I realized that I was being stupid, which is the worst feeling in the world, especially when you're so vehement about something. and because I did think I was really like, what are you guys doing? You guys are really being dicks. I mean, this is making me mad. And so then I was like, after I found out how stupid I was being, it's that one of those things where the blood just drains from you and you just feel cold. and you just walk around going, holy shit, what a fucking ass I was making of myself. Sitting there saying, this is what the fucking word would spell like and everything. And just like, you just like, please forgive me. Please don't. Can you ignore that ever happened?
And then Aaron brings it up.
Yeah, no, it was, and I'm so glad I did.
No, those are fun stories to tell because
now they're good.
Right.
I feel like we're possibly in Chris's BetterHelp session right now.
That's probably right.
Well, I remember on CinemaSins when we first started CinemaSins, Lost was our third one, right? But it was
early for sure.
It was my first edit. Because I think you had worked on Game of Thrones and Stranger Things. Now, Made In did the initial edit. This was just us tweaking stuff. But it was my first one to tweak, and that's still to this day, I think, the most edits I've ever done of one thing. I don't remember what all the issues were, but I remember it kept going back and forth like 7 times, and then finally Jeremy was like, I think this is good. I'm good with the print. And then Aaron comes back. He's like, I'm sorry, man. He's like the bumps don't sound in sync. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I haven't touched the bumps, but apparently I did, because sure enough, I went back in there and they were out of sync, so I felt really bad. But that was funny because I realized that day, like, Jeremy somehow knew when I was upset somehow. I don't know how, because I didn't say anything. But I just get this random email from Jeremy. By the way, I know you had a really rough day. I had to do a lot of edits. Just want to know you're doing a great job, man.
Aww.
It was like,
people think I'm a monster, but
yeah,
That's so sweet.
but sometimes you do that one little thing. Yeah,
but I will never forget that edit. That was fun.
Yeah, well, you are doing a good job.
Thank you.
I do want to shout out the Behind the Sins podcast, though, is kind of like the evolution of what the brand or the company has become. It's become, I don't mean this as a backhanded compliment, like a lot more fun than I expected it to be. Because, we had talked about how we don't want to pull the curtain back too much because it's a creative process and we have kind of our thing that we do. And you don't want, what I personally don't like is people explaining jokes over and over again.
Yeah.
And you guys don't do that. You're basically kind of putting yourself in the service of the viewer. And with also intimate knowledge of it.
Yeah.
That was a really great hand
No one
gesture.
saw
You
Barrett's
just got
hand
your first
gesture.
experience of Barrett's hand gesture.
It's very hand rocks the cradle
And
of you.
I want to say the first thing he
That
said
was
to me
like-
when I walked in here is, this mic is like, this is going to be really close knit today, so you've got to watch the hands.
Yeah.
You got to watch the hand
Barrett
gestures.
just made a bowling gesture.
Yes.
Real
Or a prostate
intimate.
exam gesture.
Yeah, I was going to
one
say
of the
prostate
two.
exam.
Really?
Before,
The whole hand?
well, it depends on your prostate.
Yeah. Sometimes they're hard to find.
Anyways, you're
Anyway, no, it's become a lot of fun. You guys should listen to it. We are on there every once in a while. And I listen to them every week, and you guys are doing an awesome job.
Oh,
Thank
thanks,
you.
man.
I was
Thanks.
really nervous about that when I was glad Aaron asked me to do it, but they had been podcasting for so long together. And plus they were going to be in the same room together. I'd never done a podcast from afar. So I was really nervous about the whole thing, but it was just like the first episode. I mean, it was just click, and you guys are so easy to talk to. So it's fun. I mean, it really is like we are having a blast. In fact, I mean, I don't even know how much is cut out because we're just talking for hours.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I
remember when Barron's like, we're going to do an hour and a half. I even got an email from Danae after the first episode. Like, we need to keep this to an hour and a half. Like, okay, cool. And then, not to my fault, it's gone to like 2, 7. And then it was like 2.5 and then 3.
Yeah. I mean, you can tell when you have podcast co-hosts that have good chemistry. Chris and Jeremy and I have been friends for a long time, and that's why this feels like just a normal conversation for us. And I got the same feeling with you guys, too.
Yeah, well, we've done a show for a long time. But the reason it sounds good is because he does get to edit all of it out. That's why. It's all in editing. We're actually
magic
just...
is in the edit.
I will
we all know
say,
that.
because Aaron is a sharer, I think is the best way to put that, a sharer. And I'm really surprised some weeks because he'll say some stuff and I'll be like, oh, I probably shouldn't like just tell somebody about that because he's not going to put that in the podcast. And then you get the podcast and it's like, yeah, I don't wear underwear. Like, oh, he kept that in.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Right.
Yep. And now the whole SinCast audience knows as well.
There you go.
And we're all...
They should have been listening.
But even more interested, we're all in this room remembering right now. We're together. Yeah, I block that every day. I wake up. I do my morning like stretches.
Remember, you didn't know.
Oh God,
like,
he's wearing shorts. Just don't hike your leg up or anything
my
like that.
shock was that he said it out loud. Yeah.
All right, guys, it is time to talk about BetterHelp.
BetterHelp.
Yay!
Man, this service is awesome. I've been using it now for a number of months, and I keep talking about like how, you know, this is kind of what I'm experiencing as I'm going through therapy for the first time. But I cannot stress enough about how easy they make everything on you. The best part of this service, besides, you know, the eventual outcome of, you know, kind of discovering things about yourself, is all the stuff that gets in the way of you going to a doctor's office or a therapist's office. All the stuff that prevented me from getting off my butt and doing it is done for you. It's literally, we're all sitting at our computers, right? You may be sitting at a computer right now, and you literally click on the BetterHelp link and it gets you started, walks you through, and then you have a cozy little, what is it, counseling room where it has all your stuff, your appointments, things that you're working on, reminders. My therapist like sent me like this mindfulness link, like and like quotes and stuff like that. I hate that stuff, but I found it very inspirational. Like for whatever reason, like it tied into what we had talked about recently. And, man, yeah, it's been nothing but positive, particularly, the convenience. This is an online mental health resource that matches you with a counselor most of the time in your area, that you can correspond with virtually, whether it's text or video or calling or whatever it is, on whatever basis, regularity that you want, all from the comfort of your, you know, home office computer, whatever it is. And that was my main. It's shameful to say that was the main thing stopping me from doing this, but it did, and I'm better for it by doing this.
Well, you mentioned convenience. It's also the normalization, right? The idea that this is a normal part of our life. And Jeremy, I've heard you talk so many times about how everybody could use therapy. Everybody has something that they can talk about with someone, figure out, you know, what's going on in their mind, their mental health, all that kind of stuff. And what I love about BetterHelp is the fact that it just makes it just a normal part of your life. Yeah. It's just something you do. You have to eat lunch because you need some nutrition, you know? Talk to a therapist because you need some mental nutrition. So I really like that it just makes it a normal part of what you do.
And as much as I've talked about it over the years, it was my career for 16, 17 years. I just never been on this side of it. So I haven't really like said, oh, well, this is something that is normal for me. So if you're like me and you have some things that you want to work through, depression, anger, stress, anxiety, things like that, this is an excellent resource.
Yeah, baby.
Cool. Yeah. I've been using it about, I think, the same amount of time Barrett's been using it. And it's been, like I've said the last couple times, it's been an amazing experience. And like you said, I think the normalcy and just the fact that the website itself is just so easy to navigate and easy to use. And it's like we haven't even talked about the fact that, you know, your counselor's schedule comes up and you can make your own appointment. And just things like that you don't even think about are just make it easier for you and just make it a lot easier to just kind of embrace this. And I don't know, I guess it takes some of those stressors off of you so you can just talk freely and openly. And it's helped me. And I don't like to leave my house, which is probably something I need to talk to my counselor about. But if that's something, anything like that, I mean, it's just convenient, right? I mean, it's just you're in your house and you just set the appointment up, and then when it's ready to go, it alerts you, and then you get the call, and you're talking for an hour or whatever. It's great.
There are a lot of barriers people can subconsciously put up to considering therapy that BetterHelp knocks down.
Yep.
I'm too far from a therapist. Therapy
Real
is
legitimate
too
ones,
expensive.
too. Yeah.
My insurance doesn't cover therapy. I hate leaving the house. I can't open up in strange places.
And having other therapists tell you that we're too full and we can't, I mean, just being rejected
Yep.
by someone you're trying to get help from, that takes you back and makes you not want to do anything. Here, they're going to give you a counselor, you know. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, you're good. We love this service, and we're actively using it. And what's the link, Barrett?
Yeah, so go to betterhelp.com/SinCast. Make sure to go to SinCast in the URL. Literally, you will see, above or below our logo, you can start the process. Doesn't take long. And hopefully that we can get this linked up with people who need it.
Yep.
betterhelp.com/SinCast.
So we have some time for some recommends and warns, I believe.
We better.
Totes Amazeballs.
They're great.
It won the Academy Award
Oh, for what?
for best movie ever made.
We gotta.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah.
Totally.
Can I go first?
I love it.
I was stuck on a plane going to France and then coming back from France. Several planes, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I flew Delta, and my experience with Delta during this trip was spectacular. Everything
Nice.
was on time. Everything, the bag was there when it was supposed to be. And
Lucky
all that
bastard.
Stuff. They also have a really cool interface on the backs of their seats there that has a really good movie selection. And it's all free. It's all included in the trip and all that stuff. And fairly recent movies. And so I watched several movies. It's a long flight and all that stuff. And one of them that I was really excited to watch was The Long Shot.
Okay.
Oh.
So this is the one that I went to
the
Paris
Seth
on.
Rogen, Charlize Theron?
Seth Rogen, Charlize Theron.
I've heard nothing but good things.
I had two.
Uh-oh.
And they're wrong.
Uh-oh.
They're mostly wrong. This is a wreck of warn because the chemistry, weirdly, between Charlize Theron, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Theron, and Seth Rogen is really, really good. The problem with the movie is that it really doesn't know what it wants to be. It wants to be a traditional romantic comedy. It wants to be a gross out thing. It wants to be have something to say about the political climate and stuff like that. And it accomplishes none of that. The only thing that it accomplishes, have you seen this yet?
I haven't.
The only thing this accomplishes is showing this love story. And it's a fine love story, but it's essentially, a passing thing that she's the current Secretary of State and that she's going to be running for president. The title doesn't make any sense because not only is she's not a long shot. The president is about to endorse her. He's not a long shot because they have immediate chemistry. And so it just doesn't make any sense. There's some great scenes in there, but at the end of this, it goes completely off the rails, completely unbelievable. Now you could say Charlize Theron and Seth Rogen getting together in the first place would be unbelievable, but they make that work. They make that, they've got a history together and stuff like that, and they make that part of it work. But the rest of this movie is just a mess. A coda to this story, though. There's a scene, a famous scene, I guess, at this point in this, where it shows Seth Rogen masturbating and he ejaculates into his face. Okay. Saw this. I was like, oh, okay, that's a thing that happened, whatever. Yeah. The plane lands, right? And so everybody's standing up to disembark and all that stuff, getting their stuff. There's one TV in the middle that's about to show this scene. Awesome. There's Sri Lankan grandparents over here. There's little kids over here. There's horny teenagers making out over here. There's just everybody is standing, and it's the only TV on. And I know that scene is coming up. Mm-hmm. He's laying out his tissues and stuff like that, getting the lotion. And I'm and then I see the line start to move. I'm like, I bet we're going to get off before, this happens, before he gets off. And I was like, oh, we're cutting it close. We're cutting it close.
Mm-hmm.
We're cutting it close. And then it does it, and I hear the whole back of the plane go.
I like the sound you made.
I'm almost surprised you didn't do the whole no. You know,
oh my
like-
God! The Middle Eastern grandmothers are like holding. Their
Yeah,
kids,
exactly.
Like,
What did your son think of it?
He actually was getting a snack or something like that. He was off
Lucky
the
you.
air.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
Oh my God!
I saw Dicer nodding a whole lot while you were saying those things.
I think I liked it more than you, but
Yeah.
you basically just gave my review. I mean, that's exactly the stuff I said. Like,
Yeah.
their chemistry is amazing. I also mentioned maybe why I liked it more than you. I think Charlize is so incredible in this movie.
Oh, she's funny, too.
She's hilarious.
Yeah.
This is the movie where I was like, oh, Charlize can do anything.
Mhm.
Like, I always knew she was talented. She's a great actress. I didn't know she had like raunch-com in her bag of tricks, but she does. And she's incredible in it. But you're right. The movie is kind of all over the place. It gets so ridiculous at the end that it just doesn't make any sense. It loses any kind of heart that it wanted to have because it throws it away on all the stupidness at the end.
Like Gemini Man.
Yes.
That made me think
Maybe
of
not
Amy
that bad,
Schumer
but-
though when he said Charlize can be funny, and Amy Schumer like, "Oh fuck you." Like Kate Upton thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's worth watching, especially if you're just kind of looking for something light and breezy. But it's not. I had high expectations because I heard a lot of good things.
I really don't want to ask this question. How do you do that activity and end up with that on your face?
Okay, so he explains
It's a
it.
simple matter of weight ratios.
He's like, well, it's not my thing. Like, I don't do it.
Dude.
It just happened to go through the tissue or whatever. He's talking to O'Shea Jackson, by the way, Ice Cube's kid.
Aaron looked up like
Is his
sex
friend.
records for a Sins video.
For the
and
longest
there was it
ejaculation.
18 inches?
18 feet.
18
18
feet.
feet.
18 feet is the world record
For
ejaculate.
ejaculate.
Oh, I've got that by several inches.
Is that an elephant?
No, that's a human male.
How do you? I got even more questions.
I
he
wasn't
does this on purpose.
No, I think the tissue moves or something like that.
How is he aiming at his face?
He's sitting up.
And now all the guys are doing.
I'm still
Oh,
with you.
That still makes no sense to me.
I'm still with you
Where
on
do you
that.
point
That's
it?
the good
I
point.
don't point it at my face.
It's like a loaded gun. You don't do it.
I've never even had to worry that shit might hit my face.
Holy shit! I've been going out there with a loaded gun.
That makes no sense to me at all.
It's a very silly plot point.
All right.
It's a plot point.
Oh, yeah. It's a big plot point.
Really?
Yeah. It actually starts off the final act, basically.
Really?
Yep.
Interesting.
Maybe I won't watch this
Yeah.
movie.
So it's an interesting movie, but it ain't perfect.
Who wants to go next?
I'll go next. There was a movie sitting on my shelf for a really long time that I really wanted to watch. It's called Chronos. Guillermo del Toro's his directorial debut, his feature debut. Anyway, I have said this many times. I'm not a big fan of his work in general. There are movies that I kind of like. I think Pan's Labyrinth has grown on me as my favorite of his, and I like The Shape of Water.
I do too.
And I am a bigger fan of his as a human being after seeing him at the Critics' Choice Awards, because he seemed genuinely happy for a lot of people who were winning awards and stuff. But I will give anything a chance.
Mm-hmm.
And this was his first movie, and I'm going to go ahead and give a light recommend for Chronos. It's sort of a retelling of a. I actually don't know if I want to say what kind of movie it's retelling, because I didn't know, and I thought it was cool to find that out on my own. It's a certain horror trope. It's a sort of a retelling of a certain horror.
Were you aware of the?
I was not.
Really?
I was not aware of what it was, but I will tell you what the story is. It's about it starts off with this alchemist from the 16th century who creates this device, and we don't know exactly what it is, but we know that he's looking for a sort of a fountain of youth type of thing, and he's creating this device to do that for him. And all we know about that guy is that they later found him under a whole bunch of rubble and something sticking through his chest, and he died, but nobody knows where this thing went. Fast forward to the present day, this old man and his granddaughter stumble upon this statue, and the statue just happens to have this thing that's in it, and the guy puts it on his hand, and it bites him, and he's like, I don't know what this is, whatever. He's not really hurt that bad, and then he starts sort of getting addicted to it, like he wants to use it all the time. Meanwhile, there's a buyer who wants to buy the statue. They know that this thing is in the statue, but the old man's taking it out before he sells the statue to them. And it's this old man who's dying, and he knows that this thing is in it and that it could help him. And he's got I think it's his grandson or his son. It's played by Ron Perlman.
Oh, wow. Really? What year is this?
93.
Wow.
And Ron Perlman goes over to buy the statue from him, and they quickly find out, of course, that this thing is not inside of it. And, there's this whole bunch of stuff where they're trying to get this thing and whatever. But meanwhile, the guy who's using this thing is actually changing, and he's doing things that are a little bit odd, and we don't know exactly what this is all about. And I will stop there because there are moments in this that I was like, I don't know where this is going. And it was better for me not to know. If I told you what the story's template is, then you would be like going into it expecting that kind of a movie, and you might be disappointed.
This has been on my rewatch list for a while because I saw this I saw it at Belcourt, 93, I guess. It was like that summer or whatever, and I haven't seen it since. And it's one I've always been curious to go back to because I don't remember anything. I just remember Ron Perlman's in it, and then I remember there was I just had this vision of it almost looks like a bug with metal legs.
Yeah, that's the thing that he's using in the.
But I remember, I think I know what you're talking about because I do know the monster trope or whatever that it kind of is going for, but I remember so little about it. I'm really curious to watch it again.
I say light recommend because it's something that I hate tying this movie to Gemini Man, but
now I do not want to rewatch it.
But no, it's something where it comes up with an interesting premise, and you're actually like, man, I'd like to know more lore behind it, and I'd like to know more about this world and everything, rather than, oh, well, this is something that happened, and oh, that's kind of like this, whatever. So your enjoyment of it, I think, is somewhat fairly dependent on this, and it never comes out and says what it is. But you will get it pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But it's I would say this is I can understand why he became a thing. This was the movie. It was 4 years before Mimic, and that was his second movie, and that was his American debut. Was Mimic.
Yeah, that's his only movie he hates.
Yeah,
I do too.
But Siskel and Ebert loved it.
Yeah, I remember that.
I remember getting posters with their whole review on it, and I was like, "Damn, you guys really love this movie that sucks."
They loved Anaconda too, though. So
yeah, they do. But I can see how he sort of started getting a name for himself because. He's very movie nerdy, and he's movie knowledgeable, obviously, in a lot of things. But
so it was Mimic, and then I guess Blade 2, and then Hellboy, right? That was kind of the studio stuff because he did Devil's Backbone.
Devil's Backbone came,
but that was a smaller film, right?
Yeah, but it came first. It came before Blade 2, and then Blade 2, and then Hellboy.
Yeah,
and so anyway,
cool. The rest is history.
All right.
What made you just want to pull the trigger on this?
Well, because I've just recently gotten this 4K TV, a lot of the movies I've been watching recently are stuff that I've already seen. So, and if we have time, I'll go over a lot of these retreads essentially. But I watched Terminator 2 in 4K. I watched Dark Knight in 4K. And just a lot of these different things. I want to see this pop. And so a lot of the stuff in the past 2 weeks has been those type of movies. So instead of a lot of times I will do stuff specifically for this podcast, and watching that movie was that.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
That's also the reason I watched Joyride 3. Roadkill.
Yes. Yes. Please tell me about the Joyride.
I have not seen that, but I will say I have seen Joyride 2 dead ahead, unfortunately.
Well, I was flipping channels and I saw Joyride 3, and my love for the Wrong Turn movies.
Yep.
And the first Joyride film is even better than the first Wrong Turn film. The first
It's actually
Joyride film
good, right?
is good.
Yeah,
I think so.
It's really fun. Ted Levine is the voice. Oh, it's great.
It's Paul Walker and Lily Sobieski and
Steve Zahn.
And largely unseen attacker, Rusty Nail, who is a truck driver
Candy cane.
that they meet up with over the CB, and he decides to fuck with them and try and kill them.
Yeah,
Now,
he changes road signs at one point.
I don't know what happens in Joyride 2.
I don't remember. I just know I watched it.
And sadly, I've learned there's no Joyride 4 and 5. Like Wrong Turn. But I decided to watch Joyride 3 Roadkill. Now, this movie is not good at all. This is a 100% warn.
No.
Don't ever spend your time on it. There's nothing redeemable about it, even in a that's so bad it's good way.
Wow.
Because it can't even bring itself to be actually terrible. It's like middling in everything. 5 beautiful 20-somethings I've never seen in any movie.
All unknowns.
All unknown to me. Oh, well, wait, I forgot the opening scene. 2 meth heads in a hotel room run out of meth.
Uh-huh.
They decide to use a CB to trick a trucker.
Oh, I love this joke.
Into coming to their hotel room for sex so they can beat him up, rob him, and then, I guess, go buy more meth. And
So they basically stole the plot of Focus with Will Smith and
sounds about right.
I'm joking.
So it's Rusty Nail, of course, is the guy, and so the meth head guy opens the hotel room, and there's no Rusty Nail sees that he's being set up. He just, as soon as the door opens, he's punching that guy. So he showed up knowing he was being scammed somehow, which is supernatural, and I don't like that. I like my killing non-supernatural. So he devises, basically this movie decided to try and be Final Destination meets Halloween instead of Joyride 3. So he ties them up with chains. This movie's obsessed with chains. There's so many fucking chains in this movie. To the hood of his semi on either side of it. And in the middle, he's got a bag of meth. And the rest of the chains go under the truck.
It's like Toy Story 3. It's lots of hug and bear at the end.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
He's tied the chain to the drivetrain of his car and basically says, this is a game. If you can last 1 mile on the hood without falling off, I'm going to give you that meth and you can go away. But if you fall, you're going to drag the other person down underneath the truck and you're both going to get torn to shreds by my truck action. And that is what happens. And the special effects of the bloodied human bodies under the truck are Microsoft Paint worthy.
Yeah.
Then it becomes the main story. 5 beautiful 20-somethings. They're in Kansas. They're going to Canada for a car race. And they've got a car. They're like an indie racing team. They load it up on a truck bed. They start their journey going to Canada. Got this truck race. Haha. 2 of them are fucking, I think. Maybe, I don't know. They end up at a diner in Creepy Town. You can tell just by the creepy people that this is where Rusty Nail hangs out sometimes. And they find on a map in here a highway 17. It's not on their map because that's how maps work. Well, this highway will save us a whole day. Remember, they're driving from Kansas to Canada.
Yeah.
And they're still in the U.S., and they found a road that can save them a day. I can get from Kansas to Canada in less than a day.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the fuck their problem is. But the locals say, hey, that highway is haunted. And somebody else says, it's not haunted. The cops just don't go out there, so sometimes stuff happens. And they're like, hey, if it's that rare and unused, we could test our sports car out there and find out how good our sports car is going to do in this race in Canada if we ever don't die on our way up there. So, of course, they get into it with Rusty Nail because the sports driver guy is like driving like an asshole and he cuts off the truck. Well, now Rusty Nail's going to kill all 5 of you fools. You should have fucking known that.
Yeah.
But where the first Joyride movie drew tension from not seeing his face and it being this disembodied, creepy voice over a CB, this movie gives this motherfucker screen time out the ass. You see his face, you see him talking, and it's really not even about the road. He kidnaps one of them, and the whole rest of the movie is him playing games. If you come to this warehouse, I'll give her back to you. And then they go to the warehouse, and he doesn't. They're like, well, if you go to this field out here, I'm going to give her back to you. And they go out there, and he doesn't.
It's Die Hard with a vengeance.
And I just looked it up, and it's Ken Kersinger plays Rusty Nail. and he took over for Kane Hodder and played Jason in Freddy vs. Jason. So like, does this fucking guy just go to like horror movie sequels and be like, hey, who do you not want to hire back? I'll do their role.
He's superhuman. He's basically Jason or Michael Myers in that nobody's ever going to kill him. No one's ever going to outsmart him. He's one step ahead of every. That's not what Joyride was all about. Like you've
Joyride. Do you think they care though? I mean,
in 2 movies, you've lost the spirit. Well, I'm just saying, I won't. If I'm an investor, I'm investing money in a sequel to a movie that was successful, I want it to be kind of like that movie.
I want you to watch DTV horror movies every week and do this, because this should be a segment.
Oh my God, yeah.
Well, anyway, the whole point of telling you this story was to tell you this one line he says when he's beating up one of the kids. Because he's hiding behind a truck and the kids think they got the drop on him, and he comes out of nowhere and he kicks a kid across the face. I swear to God, he says, I learned that from a hockey ninja. What? And I spent maybe a half an hour trying to understand that line.
A hockey ninja.
It has to have been an ad-lib.
Is this on the captions?
Yeah.
It was in the captions, yes.
So this is actually
I
what he
learned
said.
that from a hockey ninja.
I want to tell you though, the one thing I do remember from Joyride 2, the one thing I remember is the whole thing is Rusty Nail's like making him like do all this shit for him, and they're trying to figure out a way to trap him. So like Nikki Acox plays the main girl. She's been in some random stuff around the same time that came out. And he's having her strip like in the street, and then this big truck's watcher. She assumes it's Rusty Nail, and so I think they concoct some plan where one of the other guys is going to come around and get him. But when he opens the door, you find out it's some other trucker, and Rusty Nail has just told this guy, hey, you go, this woman's going to be stripping. And then after they beat him up a little bit, he's like, I'm going to get the fuck out of here. He's like, you guys are crazy. And then he's like, and you're not even my type, woman. I like big titties. I like circus tent titties.
Okay. So maybe it was not an ad-lib.
Only thing I remember.
Now we need to find out if the screenwriter's the same from number 2 to number 3.
That sticks in your head.
Whenever I hear a line like that, and they put it in some sort of villainous type character or whatever, I always think it's more the screenwriter wants to write that more than they want to give any villainous characteristics. Like, I've always wanted to say this.
Yeah,
I can put it through this guy, and it's like, hey, it's not me, not the screenwriter that said this.
It sounded very Rob Zombie too, and I think this was probably around the time like he was making some stuff. So I kind of feel like that was probably happening a little bit. It was.
Anyway, that's a hard warn for me.
Just some history on Joyride, because this is what this podcast is now.
Yes.
Joyride, I remember came out in 2001. It came out 3 weeks after 9/11, and I remember because I watched that movie with just completely different eyes.
Mm-hmm.
It was just, there were certain scenes in that movie that were scarier because that had happened. Just the way things were presented in it. John Dahl directed the first one.
Great director.
And he's another guy that I don't know what's happened to him, but he was always this like, because he did Rounders, he did Red Rock West, he did all these like
he does
really
a lot
good
of television.
Yeah.
Now.
But then you were talking about not having seen a Joyride 4, and it's funny, the second one came out 7 years later.
Yee.
And then the 3 came out 6 years later in 2014. So maybe
Maybe.
there'll be a Joyride 4 next year or 2021.
And I will watch it.
Yeah. So anyway.
I did also want to quickie throw in there that Chris recommended a few weeks back, The Hate You Give.
Oh,
and I watched that 2 days ago. Fantastic.
Yeah, man.
I was
That's a great movie.
that girl is such a good actress. I Googled her, and it's fucking Rue from Hunger Games.
Yes, it is.
What?
And
Yes,
I had
it
no
is.
idea, but she's excellent in that movie.
And she and that Pops, the King Princess date, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This
I
is
didn't know that.
it's been so fun to listen to you guys catch up on a lot of these racial tension movies that came out, last year, and The Hate You Give is another great one because this is my litany of movies that should have won an Oscar before Green Book. If we're gonna give an Oscar for how it handles race and issues of race, there were 6 different movies that were better, capable for that slot than Green Book last year. So it's been really fun to hear you guys fall in love.
You know what
with
I
these
hate?
movies.
I hate though is that I saw Green Book before I saw all those movies, and not that I was hoping to compare it to anything else later,
Right.
but I remember watching Green Book, enjoyed it, recommended it on this podcast.
Yep.
Now, I didn't think for the world it would be an Oscar nominee and end up
Right.
winning Best Picture, because now and then once that it became a joke. It became a joke, that movie. And if it never becomes a nominee, which it shouldn't have been ever,
Right.
then that recommend is totally fine.
Yeah, it can just be what it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and then it became like, oh shit, I recommended that movie. Fuck. I wish I could. I wish I didn't recommend it now.
Yeah.
Who else? We got?
I've been digging into the new Creepshow TV series. It's on
Oh, I didn't
Shudder.
even know there was a Creepshow.
Well, it's because it's on Shudder. It's
Okay.
that's the only way you can see it. Which Shudder's got a pretty big following. It's a horror streaming service, although they do like foreign action movies and stuff too, and like sci-fi fantasy. But AMC owns it. And it's really popular, obviously, amongst the horror community. I don't know how much it branches out past that.
Well, I've heard of it.
I mean, it's it's more known than most. I think last year it got really popular because they brought back Joe Bob Briggs from Monster Vision, and he has his own show on there where he shows like a double feature every week.
Oh yeah, Joe Bob.
Yeah. So that why are you laughing at me? You don't remember Monster Vision on TNT back in the day?
No.
Okay. But anyways, he's very popular amongst a lot of people. And anyway, so that got kind of popular. But then they decided to make a Creepshow series. Greg Nicotero, behind The Walking Dead and all that kind of stuff, big makeup guy. He did it. This is what I wanted the Twilight Zone to fucking be. The Twilight Zone review. Not the Twilight Zone and Creepshow are two very different things, but I'm just saying as far as an anthology series goes, this is so fun. It's very like EC Comics. It's very Tales from the Crypt-esque.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched the first 3 installments, which is there's 2 episodes each week, and they do it weekly, and they're going to do it through Halloween. So there's going to be 5 weeks. There's going to be 10 stories basically, and I've watched the first 6, and I would say they're 5 for 6 in the first 6. So they're doing really well.
Are they doing an anthology per episode, or is each episode a different thing?
Yeah, each episode's 2 different stories. So it's like 48 minutes or something, because I guess if they ever did show it with commercials, because you don't have commercials on Shudder, so they're each like probably 23 minutes a piece. There's one story they did, and they're basing them. Most of them I think are based on like short stories and stuff. I know there's a few that Stephen King wrote. The first episode was Gray Matter, which was a Stephen King story from Night Shift, maybe, I don't know, one of his short story collections. But the second story in the first episode was this thing called I think it was called Head of the House, and it was based on a short story. I don't remember who wrote it, and it was one of the most original, because I never read the story, and it was just this. The basic premise is this little girl is given a dollhouse, and she's given these dolls to put in it, and then one day randomly there's a head, like a doll head, just by itself, no body or anything. She has no clue how it got there. And then she starts noticing that her other dolls are like moving around. And then she kind of finally figures out that maybe they're scared of the head. And even when she moves it out, it pops back in. And it was just this really just clever premise. And I don't really get creeped out anymore, and it was super creepy.
Yeah.
But in a fun way. Like I said, I don't know if you know EC Comics, and Tales from the Crypt obviously is EC Comics. It's very much in that kind of tradition.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's Shudder. That's the only way you can watch it. But I mean, you can get a free month. I mean, they're like everybody else, and if you're going to give Shudder a try, I mean, October seems like the perfect month to do it. They've got One Cut of the Dead, which I recently watched. And by the way, I'm not promoting. I mean, this was mainly for Creepshow. I'm not getting paid by Shudder. I just want to make that clear. But One Cut of the Dead was really good. They have Tigers Are Not Afraid, which, have you seen that, Aaron? That was another big festival film from this year that they just debuted. They're buying a lot of these big ticket horror movies from these festivals that are getting a lot of praise. So it's a really fun service. But Creepshow is definitely worth like the 30-day trial.
Well, and being a fan of the original movie
exactly.
and everything,
Yeah.
I would definitely want to watch this. I've seen the original movie like 3 times.
It's good, right?
It's really good.
I remember enjoying it.
Yeah, all of the different stories are good.
Yeah.
The Hal Holbrook one is great. The Leslie Nielsen one is great.
I think the Leslie Nielsen one was like probably my least favorite as a kid, because it's but now it might even be my favorite. It's something to tide you over.
Right.
And I think all of those are based on Stephen King, because him and George Romero did it together.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think King wrote the entire thing.
Yeah.
And it was Romero directed.
What do you got?
I got an advanced release of Joyride 4.
Sweet.
It's Pedal to the Metal is the subtitle.
You tight-lipped motherfucker.
But it's MEDAL, Pedal to the Metal. It's about some Olympians that have to get to their Olympic events, and then they use their different
Or is it
activities
MAGAL?
And they find a road that will save them a whole day.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Whole day?
I have been buried in documentaries. I was on the nomination committee for our documentary awards, and our nominations just came out.
dropper.
I actually had one in each category: Recca Warren, Warren recommends. So
All right.
whichever one you want to hear is fine.
Well,
Let's hear some
give us just-
positivity.
You've already mentioned how amazing They Shall Not Grow Old is. I've heard you guys talk about that. Apollo 11 is obviously amazing. Both of those got nominated. I want to give some love to Diego Maradona.
Oh, it's on HBO. I keep meaning to watch that.
It is
it's good?
so good.
Really?
Yeah, and you don't have to love sports to enjoy it, but if you do love sports, it's so great because it's a documentary, at least for me. Maybe not everybody's like this. I had no clue about his career as a soccer player and how incredible it was. And sorry, as a football player. And how incredible it was. And the movie just documents it so well, combines it with all the contemporary off-the-field stuff that was going on in his life, with drug lords and, crime and different things like that. And also at the heart of it, it's a story about this kid who grew up just to be amazing at football and how he wasn't able to cope with that. And so he created a personality, the Maradona personality, to be this other person that could deal with that. And Diego was like the real him. And so his friends would,
Didn't Beyonce do that?
well, I mean, yes, you could say it's kind of a similar thing.
You're being serious,
she-
though,
no,
aren't
I'm
you?
being totally serious.
The Sasha Fierce
Yeah,
and
Sasha
Beyonce.
Fierce. Yeah. When
Aside from the drugs and the crime lords and all that. I mean, as far as I know, but yes.
She's also an excellent football player.
yes, right. So, but what's fascinating is to hear these, and of course it happened a long time ago too. And so for them to pull together kind of all this historical stuff and tell that story was, I thought, really impressive. So yes, it's on HBO. It's a great one to see.
When was this? When is this set, or when was he popular?
In the
Well,
60s?
it follows he had a long career, but it follows, I forget the city, but he went to a certain city in Italy, to play, even though he's not from Italy, he's from
Brazil?
I don't think so.
Argentina.
But
Argentina.
I believe that's correct. Yes. So it was interesting because it follows his career just in this city, even though he had, other big moments of his career, but it's just fascinating what happened to him while he was there, as well as the World Cups that he played for Argentina while he was playing for this Italian team. And like the second World Cup he played was in the city that he played for in Italy, but he was playing for Argentina against Italy in like the semifinals, and like what that did to that community. Like, it's fascinating stuff.
Yeah, he's. I believe he rose to prominence in the 80s. I think that was the main thing, and he's famous for the Hand of God goal. I believe that you can see it on YouTube where it's some like ridiculous. How in the world did that get in the net? Type of thing.
What is it? Hand of God?
I think it's
goal?
called the Hand of God.
Because it's just impossibly difficult?
It looks like it's just being directed into the net.
Oh, interesting.
Deus ex footballos.
Yes, that's correct.
Deus ex Kikaka.
Kikika.
Yeah.
Kikika.
That's awesome. I'm going to check that out then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been meaning
it's
to
a good
watch
one.
it.
Have
hit me.
you guys seen Dancer in the Dark?
Oh, Bjork?
The
Yeah.
Lars von
Yeah,
Trier?
the Lars von Trier.
Long time ago.
So that's the one that I'm gonna just bring up, because when I was trying to figure out what I would talk about, I was thinking like, what would a Recca Warren be for me? And this one jacked with me a lot. I love Bjork I love her music.
Yeah.
Because there's so many layers to it, and like you can listen to it over and over and over again. Really good headphones, and she just builds and builds and builds. And of course, she's super kooky and all this stuff. And so I was flipping through the TV one day, and it was on. It happened to be on television, and I got totally sucked in because in this movie, it's about her. So her character's name is, I think, Selma, and she is. I looked it up. She's Czech, and she's an immigrant mother, and she's working at this factory. The whole premise is like she's going blind. And so to cope with the stress of everything, she kind of escapes into her mind into these musicals. And so the movie has this very serious, kind of like bummish reality of working in a factory. But then all of a sudden, everyone will turn and start like literally just doing dances. And the soundtrack is fascinating because they built it. Like, for example, one time she goes into a basketball, like a gymnasium. And when they recorded the music for that, they literally recorded the sneakers like making the sound on the basketball court and the basketballs bouncing, and that became the soundtrack to the music. Or when she's on a train, the bass line for it is from the actual train. So, and then like when they're in their factory, all the noises from the factory things becomes the music. And I really relate to that because I will hum in harmony to my vacuum cleaner. I'm that person. So I hear music all the time. And of course I love Bjork. So I'm super into this. And then all of a sudden it goes fucking sideways.
Yes, it does.
And I'm like, no, like one of the actors in this is the guy who always plays the good guy, and he's not the good guy. And so like it really messed with me. It really, really messed with me. I had to I turned the channel.
That was a good idea.
I was sitting on the couch. I was like, no. Oh, I can't do this. And then I started to like watch SpongeBob or something. I don't remember, just to kind of clear my head. And then I couldn't. I had to go back and watch it. And then it gets worse and worse and worse. And then there's these great songs. I'm like, yay, it's happy. I'm in a musical. And I'm like, oh God, what is happening?
Sounds like a Lars von Trier
I was
movie.
gonna say, I can't imagine watching Lars von Trier not knowing who he is.
I didn't
because-
know. No.
This is the least bleak of his stuff, probably.
Barrett is an aficionado. He's seen every Lars von Trier movie like 10 times.
Oh my God. Well,
I'm kidding. No, you've seen a lot of them. You like the porn
Almost
stuff.
all of them.
porn stuff.
I do, but I mean, that's not...
Oh my God. I didn't know this movie was 2 hours and 20 minutes long. It's a very long one. And I to this day have not gone back to watch it again because
you should
messed
not.
with me so bad. But I listen to the soundtrack regularly because I love the music.
It's a great
So
soundtrack.
Yeah,
anyhow.
Barrett's like, you should watch Antichrist.
That's my record one.
Yes.
Which I have not seen.
I recommend
Don't
it.
watch Oh my God.
I'm not going to.
Did he
Yeah.
do the Nymphomaniac one
That's
and two?
the one I was thinking of.
Yep.
That was the porny one I was trying to remember.
And he also did Dogville. and-
Dogville is what I saw. I saw Breaking the Waves.
Yeah, Breaking the Waves. And then there was, what was the sequel to Dogville? It had Bryce Dallas Howard in it.
Oh, I forget.
I saw something because
Lords of
when I was
Dogtown.
trying
Yeah,
to-
Lords of Dogtown.
It said that he was a controversial director, and I didn't.
Yeah.
And when I saw that,
I think he's just an
I didn't-
asshole.
I didn't know what that meant, and I wondered if it was like a Weinstein kind of situation. or
No, he's
something.
not that we know of.
I think
but-
like him and Godard just
He's
like
just not-
sit like
not,
Jean-Luc
like, super
Godard. I
nice.
think they just sit
Yeah.
in coffee shops and scream at people.
The other thing about
That's what I was
him,
picturing.
and it may not be yelling at people either. It might just be that he always makes movies that play on the audience more than it plays.
Oh man,
Like so.
Yeah.
Like there's another guy named Michael Haneke that does the same sort of
That's
deal.
very
He did
similar.
the movie called Funny Games,
Oh.
which is not,
it's
Yeah,
such
don't
a
watch that.
it's such a brutal movie because you're rooting for her because she's like she's the good person, and she's slowly losing her sight. So by the time these horrible things happen to her, how she has to kind of get through it and being completely blind and making her way around, and it's really emotional. And so I would super, super recommend that you watch it if you haven't. And also like just prepare yourself for 2 hours and 20 minutes of intense emotion.
Yeah, she actually had a personally an emotional time on that set apparently because Lars von Trier is I guess not known for like being Hitchcockian to his actresses or anything like that. But he does put them through some substantial emotional stuff, and I don't think she was prepared for that. But it brings out a beautiful performance.
Yeah, I thought so. And I
yeah.
didn't know that side of Bjork. And because I love her music, I think it was interesting to see. But yeah, you go in expecting that it's not going to be great. But it's also great.
That's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
good point, though,
yeah.
because Kidman's really good in Dogville, even though I don't really like the movie. Melancholia was another one of his.
Yeah.
That's really good. Kirsten, I mean, that might be my favorite of his.
Kirsten Dunst.
As much as I can call something good of his.
No, actually, that might be his least bleak
Yeah, I was gonna.
movie.
I think
it's about the end of the
It's about
world.
the end of the world.
That's probably why I like it more. I don't feel like I have to take a shower.
By the way, I wanted to bring this up because the hand of God goal and everything. We'll read this from Wikipedia, so it's probably not exactly how we described it, but there's one line in here I'm not sure what it means, but we'll go with that. Because of the inertia of the play, Maradona would have been offsides, but because of the coming of an opponent's ball was correctly enabled. I don't know what that means. Once he was inside the box with the ball coming out of the air, Maradona went on to challenge the ball alongside goalkeeper Peter Shilton, who stands 20 centimeters taller than Maradona. Shilton jumped forward with his right hand while Maradona did so with his left arm outstretched. Maradona's fist, which was raised close to his head, hit the ball first, causing it to bounce into the goal. Maradona nervously began to celebrate, glancing sideways at the referee and the linesman, and relaxed when the goal was validated.
Okay.
Yeah,
He
that's
actually did
definitely in
touch
the
it.
movie.
He
yeah,
did. He hit it with his hand,
and it was a crucial deciding goal. Like it was, and he handed it into the
Nice.
Like, so.
That wouldn't stand in today's age of instant replay, 4K, yada
Yeah.
poo poo.
Nope,
Yeah.
it would not.
Yada poo poo.
Yada poo poo.
Okay, well, that'll do it for this week. Keep going to SinCast presented by CinemaSins on Facebook. We have a CinemaSins Twitter. We have Music Video Sins Twitter. We have a Discord. If you want to go on, if you haven't joined us on Discord, Danae's on there all the time.
No kidding. Like half this podcast she's been on.
Exactly.
It's not a lie.
I get on it. And if you guys directly address me, I will talk to you. But other than that, you go for it, guys. You go for it. But you can go to Discord. If you need a Discord link, you can go to a number of places. You can private message me on Facebook. I'll give you one. We have a number of social media around the room. Go ahead. Tell me what yours is, Aaron.
I'm at Aaron Dicer on Twitter. Is probably the best place to chat movies with me.
At Sam Loomis 13.
At Danae Says.
Mm-hmm,
All right.
Do you have to put the accent aigu
No.
in the Twitter handle?
It's DENEE. And so at Denise Says is fine.
Oh, that drives you crazy, doesn't it? That there's no accent aigu in there.
I don't kind of understand it. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why can't Twitter just like be for me? You know,
Right?
Mm.
Right?
Like my E is special. It makes me special. It's like a halo, like a half a halo at least.
Yes.
Damn it.
Right?
Mhm.
Okay. Well, that'll do it for this week. It's Chris Atkinson, Jeremy Scott, Barrett Scher, Aaron Dicer, Jonathan Watkins, and Danae Hughes. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. Comment on our episodes on our SoundCloud page. Check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Reddit. And be sure to visit CinemaSins.com.
It's
Can always
very
do a part
likely
3.
that we won't all be in the same room again together until Sin Week 2020
Oh, yeah.
or 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody does the 1,000.
I saw
This is 2020.
I saw a great thing the other day saying they should let Barbara Walters do the ball drop.
Oh,
so she
yeah?
can say it's 2020.
Yeah, it should be.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Is she still alive?
Think so.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Good for her.
Good for her.
Barbara Wawa.
Just counting
Baba
that.
Wawa.
Just counting that view money.
Are we still recording?
Mm-hmm.
That's good. This is priceless outtake material right here.
It's like the cable guy, man. Like when you got to stay with the babysitter.
Stay home with Mr. Babysitter.
When am I going to have a brother? Well, that's why mommy's going to happy hour.
I remember when it became like, for whatever reason, like I would never do this today, but like my parents and I would watch some R-rated movies together. Like I remember those first times, like when I was like 13 or 14. And I remember seeing Terminator 2 with my dad. I remember seeing JFK with my dad.
Wow.
And this was, and I had similar upbringings as you guys did. And there was just some sort of breaking point where I was allowed to watch them, and I watched it with my parents, and it was totally fine. Like I wouldn't even feel any discomfort about it at all. They may have, but I didn't. And then now, later, I was just thinking, man, I could never watch some of these movies with my mom.
I think back to that too. Like I remember, like Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is one I remember. That might have been one of the first R-rated movies my mom took me to in the theater. And there's there's a pretty big like nude set scene in that movie. And at the time, I mean, I was like 11 or whatever, and I mean, I was probably just like, hell yeah, boobs.
Yeah.
And now I think back, I'm like, God, my mom must have been so fucking uncomfortable just sitting there with me.
I think I vaguely remember all of us watching a movie in HBO, and I don't know how old I was, 8, 9 years old, sitting in front of the television, and it was some sort of club scene or something, and this woman walks out completely naked, and I didn't know what I was seeing. I was just like, whatever, and I could hear my mom going, "Oh my God, she's completely naked."
Did you ever see The American with George Clooney? Where he's like
never have seen
an
that.
assassin in Europe. I went to that with my father-in-law.
Oh no!
And there's a really long sex scene in the middle, and it's full of groaning. Like it's one of the most uncomfortable. It's like and there's nudity, and it goes on for like 5 fucking minutes. And I'm sitting there the whole time going,
Literally.
we're not going to have to talk about our boners later, are we?
Just like 12-year-old Forrest Gump in there.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so,
that sex scene is shocking.
So The American is what that
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
AMER.
So that's interesting. My parents, they've apologized to me. They're like, we probably shouldn't have watched Spaceballs with you. That's as bad as my parents were. They felt apologetic about Spaceballs, which is just a goofy one.
Well, it has the word balls in the title. So.
Right.
does.
We talked
Scotty
about
beamed
that.
me twice last night. It was wonderful.
Yes.
Oh, or Splash. That was another one. They
I remember
apologized
that.
for.
That was a big movie when I was like,
Yeah.
It was huge.
I don't think I saw that in theaters, but that was one of those when we first got HBO movies.
It was
Splash all over the place. I used to watch that all the time.
I was obsessed with trying to become a mermaid. There's this one scene where she's in the bathroom and she gets in the tub to kind of unfurl her tail.
Yeah.
And I had not watched it as an adult. I only remember watching it through a kid's eyes. And the actress,
Daryl Hannah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Barrett. I apologize. I shouldn't have had this seat. You're totally wrong. She reaches over, and it's just like she maybe moved her arm, or just she has this gesture she does. She's just acting. It's not a big deal. But my kid brain thought that she had a button, and she pushed it for her tail to come off. So every time,
maybe she did.
every time I went to a pool, I was always like, okay, where's my button? And I would try to get in the bath or get in water, and I'm just trying to figure out where my mermaid button is because I wanted that so bad.
There's a whole episode of Big Mouth where a girl tries to find her button. That's a whole
that's right. That's right.
Oh, that's a different button.
Different.
Sorry,
Totally different.
Totally different button.
So
Yeah.
I remember, I love being, I think thinking about stuff like that. My grandmother, I would love The Greatest American Hero, and my grandmother made me a red cape one day when I was staying with her over the summer, and then she gave it to me and tied it around me, and I immediately went and just jumped off the couch because I thought I could fly.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And then she was like, "I probably should have talked to you about this and told you that didn't," because I was like, I don't know, 6,
Man,
5.
kids are stupid.
Yeah, especially boys.
I had the 45 vinyl single of the theme song from Greatest American Hero.
I think I had that as well, actually. I also had the Super Bowl Shuffle and the Billy Ocean classic from, was it Jewel of the Nile or Romancing the Stone? It was When the Going Get Tough.
Oh, geez.
Jewel of the Nile, right?
And
I don't know.
Romancing the Stone is the first one.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So I think it was Jewel of the Nile because I think I got those.
Greatest American Hero is Believe It or Not. I'm walking on.
Yeah.
Is that the one where
Again, Robert Culp. What's he?
Robert Culp, baby.
God, I love that show.
is that the one where they eat the snake in the jungle after they go into
The
Romancing the
Stone.
Stone.
I think so. Yeah.
scared me.
Romancing
so
the
bad.
Stone. I loved that movie. That was another one that I used to watch all the time.
Oh yeah, for me too. I rewatched Jewel of the Nile recently. It's
Oh
terrible.
yeah. Well, Jewel of the Nile.
I didn't remember anything about
Jewel of the Nile has a lot of weird production notes about it because they made it.
It came out a year later.
Yeah, they made it without what's her name, the writer. I guess she had died.
Yeah,
She had died, and then they
Yeah.
made a sequel. They had to make the sequel.
And it's Louis Teague. It's not Robert Zemeckis.
Right.
That's one of those movies where
From the director of Iron Eagle.
the female, the woman that's in the Romancing the Stone, her big moment was when she decided to rip off her other heel on her shoe.
Mm-hmm.
That was her heroic moment.
Yes.
And I remember being a girl being like, that's so badass.
Yeah.
She just ripped her other
Yeah.
heel. And now I'm looking at Wonder Woman and go, no, that's badass.
Yeah.
It's just so funny that was her big, heroic moment.
Yesterday on the way over, Danae grabbed coffee at Sump, which is right
Which
there
is
with
so
Pastaria.
fucking good.
Yeah.
Are you coffee people?
Yeah.
Have you been to...
Nice work.
Have you...
First time.
I know.
First time podcasting.
Maybe I need to sit there, Barrett. Barrett.
I'm sorry.
Now, what is it, Michael?
I've never been to a place that measures their their coffee grounds.
Oh, interesting.
So they pull the shot, and then they set the whole device that goes into the thing. They set that on a scale, and then there's this teeny tiny spoon, and they just begin to just slowly take off. So it's this whole measured science thing, and it was really good.
I almost did a rant on a podcast once about the olive counters at Carrabba's, because if you get an Italian salad at Carrabba's, there are always 2 black olives. 2. The tomatoes different in number. Carrots, different in number. But there's always, because I hate olives. I always take them off and give them to my wife. So I know there's some motherfucker in every single Carrabba's is going, Italian salad, 1 olive, 2 olive. And then moving on with his life.
Oh, absolutely. It's just like fast food. I mean, they all have their set. You know, this
How
is
you
what I
hating
do.
olives? The hell's wrong with you?
I don't-
Hating olives.
They told us when I went to
hate
Chick-fil-A
olives,
in
too.
high
Do
school,
you
they
really?
told us how
Yeah.
many ice cubes to put in a cup.
Oh, that's amazing.
I've given them a try, man. I've given them a good,
I never did it,
diligent
but-
try, and it just doesn't
You
work.
can't hate olives. The word love is right in it. I go a little more radio with my voice when I have headphones on because I like the sound of my voice, so I play with it a little bit
At
more.
least he's honest.
Live from a bunker.
It's serious, no doubt. And I'll listen back to it and I'll be like, "Oh, come on, man! Like, dial that down a little bit."
Oh, come
So-
on, Dicer.
So I take the headphones off so that I don't feel that urge to like play with the sound.
Is that what you do? You go into like DJ voice?
Yeah, I
Yes.
just love playing. I love playing with the sound of my voice, like how it feels, so it just when I have headphones on, it amplifies that literally.
Is that an audio
So-
file? Like where
No, I'm
you're
not really an audiophile. Like I can't. It's not that I can tell like microscopic differences in audio. It's just I don't
So
know.
an audio
It's
snob,
just
then?
pure narcissism is
Yeah.
basically what it is.
I can just imagine like John McCree dancing around the studio. That guy was so wasted at the last show we saw. It was hilarious.
Yeah. See, I don't think I would have enjoyed that very much.
Well, I didn't, but it was amusing on a certain level.
I get that.
It was objectively bad because he kept forgetting his fucking lyrics. But like, it was interesting. I mean, he was plowed, and then he was like, "I'm not drinking anymore." And then he bring out another big thing of wine and start guzzling it. He spent like 25 minutes giving away a tree.
Nice.
Fucked up.
I'm glad I left when I did.
Yeah, you definitely saw the Benny Folds thing. Although that drummer, he was pissed at that drummer.
Ben Folds was?
Yeah.
Oh, you saw Ben Folds live?
Remember? Yeah, we saw him
Oh, I
actually
would
the
love
night
to
before we went to New York
Would love to
last
see
year.
Ben live.
I've seen him live probably 8 times.
That
now.
was more than
It's
a year
impressive,
ago.
right? I've heard it's impressive.
Oh, he's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Was
That's
it like
more than a year ago.
5 times, I think.
September of last year.
His piano playing is more impressive live than his voice is because his voice has always been good enough.
Well, it's the same reason I want to see Harry Connick live.
Yeah.
Like, just the musicianship. You know?
He was sick when we saw him that time. But
I'm not saying his voice was bad. I'm saying
comparative to his piano playing skills, you're
Yes,
correct.
yes.
But I think his voice is so pitch perfect. You remember that acapella show, that acapella
He's the best
talent
judge.
show?
He's the best reality show judge ever. Ben
Yeah,
Folds is.
because he knows when you're just ever so like cunt here flat,
Whoa,
Sorry.
cunt here?
like flat or sharp.
It's
or
a,
that
it's
kind
a
of thing.
technical musical term
Oh,
today.
I see.
It's
I'm sorry.
you have to have been
My-
to, you have to have been to Juilliard.
I hope you're okay with
to
being
really
offended.
understand
My
this.
ears-
podcast is going to end in a
Hurt.
lawsuit.
Have you listened to the stuff she talks about? Are you really concerned about her being
That's true.
offended?
Okay.
The bad thing is like I'm on Discord and I hear cunt and I'm like, what? So that what does that say about me? I don't know. I brought a snack bar for you
Ooh, sweet.
just in case you really want one.
Okay.
I brought and I
clip
also
bars.
got one for everyone, so
Sure.
nobody felt left out.
That was the worst throw.
Way to
of
go,
all
Mariota.
time. That was
Oh my
way to go.
God.
That was like
So,
Couldn't hit the follow through because
the only way that's worse is if it hits the fan and spins around and hits you in the face. That's the only way that throw is worse.
the classic Matthew Perry scene in the whole 9 yards where he chucks in the beer and he just doesn't look.
Yeah.
In Friends, in the one where Joey's depressed about something,
Yeah.
we saw this recently.
Yeah.
There's a scene where Chandler chucks like a can of beer or something to Joey, and he does the exact same
he's
thing.
mad at him
Well,
about the
the
bracelet.
bracelet thing.
There's
yeah.
even Social Network has that moment where he throws a beer to
But that's funny. It's Matthew
Saul Parker's
Perry.
girlfriend, and she doesn't even see it. It hits the wall and smashes.
and then he throws it.
And he throws another one, and she
So
wasn't
you
ready
think
for
the
it.
whole 9 yards watched that episode, and the director was like, "Perry, you got to do this."
Maybe.
It's so
I
fucking
think that
great.
came after.
It's no funny. I mean, it's not funnier anywhere else other than whole 9 yards.
I agree.
Yeah,
Because he's
It's
so
just the-
apoplectic.
It's just the way. Because he's just like, you killed that guy.
Oh, Willis throws it to him, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
and
that's
he's
right.
and I don't know if it's the way it was edited or what. I don't know what it is. It's perfect.
Perfect. That movie's
Well,
awesome.
and even Bruce Willis's reaction to it's great.
Yeah.
Just everything about that moment. It's awesome.
That movie is great.
It's
That's
great.
a movie.
And
I don't know. I go great.
he's underrated as a physical comic.
Oh yeah, Bruce
Perry?
Willis or
Matthew Perry. Bruce Willis is not
Properly rated.
he's properly rated as a physical comedian. But there's a scene where he like trips over a lamp. I've seen Whole 9 Yards a bunch, but there's also a scene near the end when he and Natasha Henstridge and Kevin Pollak are all hiding in the garage at the house next door, waiting for Bruce Willis to come home. And Matthew Perry decides to sit on a stack of tires that has like plastic over it. And he like sits down and it starts to slowly tip over and it's making this wheezing noise. And he's just kind of like, it reminds me of Galaxy Quest when they're pulling the ship out and it's scraping the side of that dock for like
amazing.
10 seconds. And it just goes on. God.
We got the Lizzo the music video for us to review. I made not you've already done this.
I narrated that.
Yeah, you're done. You're done. It's just me and Barrett. You're good.